The story begins with the narration of the main character. His name is Ming and his profession is a programmer. He is none other than a specialist in the creation and refinement of software products for computers and other similar devices. He worked 16 hours a day. Ming's mind was full of thoughts that he was about to fall asleep, but he fell on the keyboard and died. After the death of the hero, the pupils dilated, and immediately after that they seemed to light up with a bright light. Suddenly, Ming, whose body had changed in shape, height, and age, began to fall down in an open space, very reminiscent of space. Immediately after that, Ming realizes that he has been reborn in a completely different world, which is completely different from the last one. This new world seemed to exist after many centuries and years ahead in the future. The whole city was filled with tall new buildings of different shapes with lots of burning signs. This world seems to exist on another level, unlike where Ming was. People are talking from everywhere. They are united by one topic. Almost everyone advertises their stores by offering discounts. The hero wakes up. The young man is abruptly blown up from the spot. The guy sits down on his knees and carefully looks around the room in which he is and does not understand where he is. The guy decides to get to his feet and look around again more closely. He is still in shock that he cannot utter a word. Then the young man decides to go to the mirror. Ming comes almost close. The guy sees a completely different person in front of him. The guy abruptly moves away and moves a meter away, rounding his mouth in horror and loudly asking the void about who the person he sees in the reflection is. The young man abruptly and firmly, as if trying to pull out clumps of his own hair, grabs his head with both hands and screams. He's trying to remember what happened. Ming remembers that he usually worked and tried to finish the task from his boss, but then his brain just shut down. Now Ming has restored all the previous chronological events in his buzzing and incomprehensible head. Ming puts on slippers and says with a sneer that apparently he got not only the body of a stranger, but also slippers. Ming decided to put aside sadness and start rejoicing that he had a second chance to live a decent and wonderful human life. He gathered all his willpower and fortitude and with a wide smile on his face said out loud that in that case, let his past and worthless life scatter to the wind. At that moment, his eyes abruptly lit up with a blue light. The young man furrowed his brows and opened his eyes wider, clearly not understanding what was happening to him now. The guy was pretty scared that he might have been happy in vain and tried to cheer himself up. Soon a picture popped up in front of the guy's face, which just hung in the air. In this picture there was an image of the start icon, as in a video player or application. Ming was greatly delighted by what he saw. It dawned on the young man that he could take and watch any moment of the life of a person who had previously been in this young body. Ming from the New World is a 16-year-old student who studied in college. The young man has a very good understanding family with healthy relationships. First of all, Ming thought that the basic characteristics of the young man were already pretty good, but he did not understand why the guy entered a bad college. Immediately after that, his thoughts were interrupted by the opening of the door to the room. Ming opened his eyes wide and turned around abruptly. In front of him now towered a young and very beautiful girl. It was the sister of the previous body carrier. At that moment, Ming realized that his sister was already standing in front of him. And the first thing he thought about was that his older sister was too beautiful, sweet, and pretty. Ming turned his face back to the wall. He didn't quite understand why he was feeling any strange emotions or feelings while thinking about his new big sister. Somehow, Ming's sister's name popped up in his head, and he began to feel feelings of envy, inferiority, and envy. Ming decided to turn around to look at his sister, but she was no longer there. Apparently everything that happened was just a memory of the guy's body. Ming went to his sleeping place, which was not made up from the word at all, and decided to put things in order here at least a little. The young man intended to shake and lift the blanket to spread it out again, but smoothly and beautifully. But what was Ming's surprise and his confused face when he noticed adult magazines under the blanket. The young man asked no one out loud about what all this he saw could mean. He exhaled and relaxed a little, deciding to think carefully first. And immediately after a few fleeting seconds, Ming laughed sincerely, that a bright and radiant smile appeared on his face. He went on to say out loud that if you think about it, adult magazines are quite normal, given the age of the young man. After that, the guy folded his arms on his chest at the elbows, crossing them between each other, and decided to look around the whole room again. Almost immediately, a small bucket of garbage was thrown into the guy's eyes. Crumpled pieces of paper were scattered nearby. Ming carefully looked closer to the subject of the study. He squatted down, picked up the papers, and began to read. Now Ming understood everything. He realized that the boy also knew that it was wrong to feel some kind of vague love and emotions towards his older sister. The young boy in connection with this all intended to leave this place, and this city, hoping that everything would change radically. Lu Ming Jr. firmly decided for himself that if he could achieve great success in the future, then he would be able to help his older sister. And in connection with this, his difficult decision, the boy decided to become a master at creating maps that were too popular in this new world. But at this moment, the hero was shocked for himself. He had never heard of such a profession and such a strange kind of activity in his life. It was then that he realized that in an incredible way he got and found himself in a new and completely different world. This information was both fascinating and terrifying. Then the narratives begin that in this new world, the entire vast space between heaven and earth was literally completely saturated with the most powerful energy. At the same time, a picture of a battle taking place somewhere in a rocky area is depicted, where a dark-skinned man won with a punch in the stomach. The second man decided to use a different tactic and hit the dark-skinned man on the forehead with one finger, making a characteristic clicking sound. He was not young, as he had a gray beard and mustache, and also wore a green shirt. This battle was won by this old man, and the dark-skinned guy fell dead on his back with his mouth wide open and absolutely white eyes without pupils. This is followed by a narrative that there were such special people, who were really happy to enjoy the sight of blood after a good juicy fight. Behind the old man was a young girl. She has short gray hair, on which the antennae are located like insects. She gave a loud yelp and trembled all over her fragile body. It was obvious that the girl was very scared and was about to cry soon. But then she abruptly raised her head to the sky and screamed shrilly with an inhuman scream, not a squeal. The old man in the green robe looked at her in horror, not understanding what was happening. It turned out that the girl had grown to an extraordinary size in a couple of seconds and was now higher than the rocks and mountains next to which they were. Now she won the battle. After that, it is said that the master of creating maps is a very good auxiliary profession, and they have their own card, which is considered the strongest. At the moment, the young man was holding a glowing card between both hands. He said out loud that this is the one that is the original card. If you seal any skill, ability, illusion, image, and the like into it, then it will be possible to overwrite this captured thing. But already into another card. The young man begins to turn this most original card on one finger. He goes on to say that Junior Lu Ming only mastered one card with just one star. Lu Ming says that this card contains a certain amount of energy and it is somewhat similar to the chakra, and now this card is somewhere at the initial level. But the guy with this news does not get upset. But on the contrary, he cheered up. He sets himself a life path and goes to conquer the whole world. After a while, the older sister will come to visit her brother Lu Ming, so the young man will have to try not to lose face. Then it is narrated that baby Lu Ming took a loan in order to quietly become the owner of his own card store. Senior Lu Ming was so furious as soon as he heard the news. He immediately started looking for his phone, which he had lost in the room. Less than 5 minutes later, Lu Ming finally dug out a smartphone under the blanket in bed. He almost started worrying again because he didn't know the password, but to his great joy, it was possible to unlock the smartphone with a fingerprint of one of his fingers. As soon as Lu Ming opened the application where the bank account was shown, he almost fainted. Lu Ming grabbed his head with both hands and started yelling. The loan amount was so exorbitant that not every rich billionaire could afford it. Lu Ming continued to yell and say that in his entire past life, he had not even seen such a sky-high amount in pictures. After the young man had spoken out, he fell back on the soft bed without strength, while spreading his arms and legs in different directions. While the young man was mentally cursing the younger, he remembered that in order to take a loan from a pawnbroker, a person is obliged to pawn something valuable and expensive. Immediately after that, the young man's eyes lit up with blue and white light. Abruptly, he found himself in the same abyss, similar to outer space. The young man hung between the burning screens with the memories of the former owner of Lu Ming's body. The young man did not understand what was wrong with this modern generation of another world, so he was in a deep state of complete shock. Lu Ming slid down from his bed to the floor, sat on his knees and hit the carpet with both fists, which spread across the floor of the room. The young man lowered his head to his knees and said out loud that he already knows what exactly awaits him in the future. Very soon the moneylenders will come and shake money from him, which is not there, and after that only splinters will remain of him. He will have to hide from everyone. Lu Ming began to struggle in agony, throws off a blue slipper from one of his feet and throws it into the wall, shouting that now he has debts above the roof, while hitting the corner. The young man opens his eyes wide. He grabs one foot, bending that leg at the knee. The guy starts talking on one leg, trying to ease the pain that followed the blow. But the soft knock of the slipper, and then the subsequent creak of the door that has just opened, bring Lu Ming to his senses. Lu Ming approaches the door from where the sound came from. The young man limps a little, and, having put the phone in the pocket of his home shorts, entering another room, the guy has a view of a spacious and bright room with a lot of maps. Lu Ming realizes what Junior has put his whole life on. Now the young man is standing in the middle of his own store, which is completely filled with shelves and cabinets with maps. He slowly crosses the entire room and finds himself at the front door. The guy grabs the handles and pushes her in the opposite direction. Now Lu Ming finds himself on the porch of his store, and in front of him is a modern city of another world. Sellers are shouting and calling customers everywhere. He decides to go deep into the new city, and the first thing the guy finds himself on Ming Street. There are a huge number of people here. They go from one store to another in droves. The young man turns around several times and realizes that all the shops in the district are dedicated only to maps. He sees that both men and women, and small children, and young girls, and grandmothers, everyone, absolutely everyone around him is buying up cards. Lu Ming is horrified at the thought that all the people in this new perfect world are obsessed with these cards. There are people of all ages and genders in queues, from babies to old people. Lu Ming is generally surprised how then the store of the former owner of the body still keeps afloat, survives with such competition. When the young man is already standing on the porch of his store, a couple goes to meet Lu Ming. The girl asks to buy a fantasy card, and the guy pretends that he didn't hear anything. Instead, he pokes his fingers at Lu Ming's store and asks about how this card joint still hasn't gone bankrupt with its income and lack of customers. Lu Ming was standing all this time and thinking about what this fantasy map is, but his thoughts were quickly interrupted, namely the phone. The smartphone screen lit up and vibrated, notifying the owner of an incoming message. Lu Ming quickly picked up the phone, unlocked it and opened the app with incoming messages. An image that went beyond the smartphone lit up in front of him. The guy was very surprised that 3D holograms were invented in this new world, which turned out to replace notifications. But he was in a state of shock for a short time, as the face of some unknown man with a beard appeared after a couple of seconds. This man threatened Lu Ming that the young man's time was running out, as well as that he should prepare Vaseline if he could not repay the loan owed on time. The events are transferred in Lu Ming's own store. In the hands of a young man, a sheet with instructions for creating a base map. Fortunately, Lu Ming worked as a programmer in his past. This means that the guy has to disassemble the drawn instructions. First of all, Lu Ming decided to find the most ordinary empty card, which is painted completely white. The young man put it on the table and began using the tip of the pen to enclose the energy of his body in the map, which would become dark lines on a snow-white empty map. At this moment, he was thinking about what he was doing, almost routine and daily actions that were almost familiar to him. It all reminded him of coding small operations. At this time, Lu Ming was almost done with the conclusion of his energy in an empty card. He had only one last stroke left until the end, before the first victory. And now in front of the young man lay a card with a golden rim, a pattern of blue and transparent diamond like water and with wings on both sides. Lu Ming took the newly obtained card in his hand and stared at it with a dissatisfied look. It turned out not at all what he wanted so much. As usual, the young man has no luck during his past life or his present one. The smile on the guy's face completely disappeared, leaving only disappointment and a faded look in its place. Lu Ming discarded the unnecessary and failed card. He said that the guy would never figure out debts and loans in his life with such cards. Lu Ming went on to say that even if he worked 20 hours without a break, he would only get 100 yuan for those hours of creation. At that moment, it was as if something cracked inside Lu Ming, as if a volcano had erupted. The guy's condition was so depressed that he was about to burst into bitter tears. But the young man was distracted from his disappointment when someone at the entrance of the store shouted his name. At the entrance to the store there was a young chubby guy of short stature. The first thing he asked about the owner's affairs, but without waiting for an answer, he went to the cash register. The guy asked if the air conditioner was working for sure. It turned out that his name is Zhang Xiaopeng, and he is an illusionist who studies with Lu Ming. Lu Ming now turned his whole body towards the guest when the information that he was an illusionist reached his brain. The guy enthusiastically opened his eyes with joy and anticipation. It seems that a brilliant idea came to the head of the main character, which seemed wonderful to him. Lu Ming added that he had just been thinking about Zhang Xiaopeng. He immediately replied to him that there was no need to remember about him and let him sort out his debts himself. Lu Ming decided to ingratiate himself into the confidence of a better friend and replied that debts had nothing to do with it at all and asked for help, like an illusionist, to create a fantasy map. After a few seconds, he said that so be it. In honor of their friendship, he would give the main character a discount and take 999 yuan from him. Lu Ming stared intently, squinting and stretching his chin at the so-called friend in the face and thought about this phrase about the power of friendship. The guest took the calculator in his hands and first of all asked about what kind of illusion Lu Ming needed so much. Zhang Xiaoping was fully involved in the process of calculating his profits. Such uncultured behavior completely exasperated Lu Ming. Therefore, he shouted loudly at his friend, asking what they were doing there at the Faculty of Illusions. But at one point he came to his senses and put aside thoughts about money. Lu Ming pulled on a wide snow-white smile again and asked in a calm voice to help create a fruit illusion. The comrade's face immediately twisted, because he expected to hear this. Therefore, Zhang Xiaoping asked Lu Ming if he really just wanted a fruit illusion. Lu Ming began to explain his scheme in detail clearly, in order for his new friend to understand everything well, namely what exactly the young man wants to achieve from this illusion. Zhao Xiaoping, in turn, asked about the joke and the essence of this illusion. The hero firmly said that he didn't really care what exactly to create. At the same moment, Zhang Xiaoping stretched out both his hands and began to try to concentrate. Thanks to this, a blue translucent cube appeared in front of him. Then, when the right time came, the protagonist told a friend to seal his new fruit illusion into a card. Although Zhang Xiaoping looked quite confident, he was very nervous and worried. The guy was always wondering if everything was going as it should, and whether he was sure of it. Zhang Xiaoping was already sweating by the final moment. The guy's teeth were trembling along with his lips, his nose was squelching, and his eyes were squinting with all their might. Lu Ming was worried and carefully looked at his friend, not looking away from his blue eyes at all for a second. Zhao Xiaoping started asking again. Then Lu Ming could not stand it. He restrained himself with all his might, began to shout at his friend so that he would not torment, and start. Zhang Xiaoping replied that he was not a bit afraid of this process. He only felt sorry for his precious inner energy, to which he was told that he would be paid anyway. This shocked the friend so much that he accelerated and replied that he would have said so right away, and loudly shouted the word seal. The main character had an empty blank card in his hand, on which a couple of seconds later a cube of energy from Zhang Xiaoping fell. Lu Ming covered the one with the fruit illusion card with his other palm as soon as the cube collided with it. The guy realized that everything had worked out. His blue eyes opened joyfully with happiness. Lu Ming decided to hurry things up and slowly began to tear off his upper palm from the palm with the card. Lu Ming looked at his palm with the card. He realized that his first card was ready when he saw it in front of him with his own eyes. The map turned out to be very beautiful, although not complicated by nature. Lu Ming was pleased, as he was looking forward to the execution of his brilliant plan. A friend said that such cards are absolutely useless, are not in any demand, and no one will want to buy them. Lu Ming replied, "Don't think about such things." The friend in the orange t-shirt didn't even thank him, but just said that he was going to eat now, because he forgot to finish his favorite noodles last night. At the very door of the store, a guy in an orange t-shirt, smiling, said that he had no idea what his friend was up to, but would look forward to good results. The hero opened his mouth in surprise. Earlier he thought that Zhang Xiaoping was either a fool, and would not understand anything, that the main character was up to something. Exactly 10 days later, a young guy with light pink hair walks along the sidewalk with his companion, and he notices a crowd in front of him. He begins to assume out loud that it seems that one of the card store owners has huge problems. The young man asks his girlfriend if she wants to get closer to the crowd there in order to take a look and find out what is really going on. The couple approached the crowd and began to listen to the speech of the seller and the owner of the store with cards. They were promised that they would not lose anything, and there is no deception here. It turned out to be our main character. He asked them, a crowd of people, to test their strength and understand what they are capable of, what they can achieve. Lu Ming declared to the whole street that it was the first cultivation card in history, and that it could not be found anywhere else. This whole procedure is only 100 yuan for one attempt. The main character continued to shout that the buyer needs to hold out for 100 seconds, and then Lu Ming will give the person who won a whole 1,000 yuan. The crowd of people at the same moment buzzed and began to actively discuss the whole situation among themselves. They didn't believe Lu Ming's words and thought it was a hoax. Someone from the crowd shouted that he would try. Lu Ming, in turn, first thought that this was the first man standing who showed courage unlike other people, but he suddenly turned white, raised his eyebrows and stared at Lu Ming. He was very confused and asked the owner of the store that he meant him or something. On the face of the young man, complete bewilderment was written, and the joyful smile was erased from the speed of light. But then Lu Ming noticed a guy with light pink hair in front of him, who told him to open his eyes wider since he couldn't see anything. The guest confidently said that he did not need money. He was already rich, but if it turned out to be a fraud, then he would report to the Consumer Association. Lu Ming smiled. He was completely satisfied with these words, and he promised that the guy with pink hair would definitely not regret agreeing. He pressed the device into which it was necessary to insert the card in order for it to activate, and shouted encouraging words and announced the beginning of activation. Most of the people from that crowd entered the room and began to carefully observe what was going to happen to the guy who wanted to try. And when the countdown time expired and the very test began, then the pink-haired guy seemed to be in another place. Under the feet of the young man, the floor did not seem to be felt. The earth came to his place, which looked like in video games with terrible quality. For a few seconds, the small guy stood and was perplexed, experiencing strange feelings that could not be described in simple words. He began to look around and noticed for himself that the quality was at the lowest level. There were only solid pixels around him. The guy himself seemed to radiate blue light from inside, thereby illuminating the narrow room where he was. After that, the young man summed up that this place did not deserve a second of his precious time, and said that he would call the association and report this deception. The guy did not have time to finish his thought, as right at the top he saw a huge watermelon flying at the guy with great speed. And then the pink-haired man saw more and more watermelons, which all tried to fall on the guy's head with all their might, thereby killing or pinning the young man down with their weight. In the end, the guy with pink hair clearly lost, not having lasted even a quarter of the time. Only pieces of watermelon fell on him right along with the crust. Then the events are postponed, and it is shown that as soon as the store for Lu Ming cards opens, namely at 4 o'clock, a huge number of people flocked there. People in crowds are overtaking each other, trying with all their might to get in time and try out the ninja cultivation map, not for the first time. In the center of the card shop stood the owner, none other than Lu Ming. There was a mountain of people in front of him, who were eager to try out the ninja illusion as soon as possible. Not only do almost thousands of people come to Lu Ming every day, but there are also those who ask to go first, promising to pay 2 or even 3 times more. Then the events are transferred to another place, to other new characters. There was a man in a tall new building that looked pretentious and expensive. The man asked his assistants about the Fruit Ninja and the first cultivation card. Do such climax cards with Fruit Ninjas exist at all? One of the people said that after launching such a cultivation card, a person falls into another world as if there, large watermelons begin to fall from the sky on the user. Each time the speed of falling watermelon and their number increase. If the flying fruit touches the player 3 times, then the round is considered over. Lu Ming earned almost 100,000 yuan. The man summed it up by saying that this figure only continues to grow and grow, despite everything. A man in a purple suit and a gray square blinked in surprise. Even the tiger, who had been sleeping up to that moment, lazily opened his eyes. The man began to talk out loud about the fact that although the design of the cultivation map may be very simple, but the mechanics should be very entertaining and complex. Continuing to say that the owner of the card store has everything thought out to the most elementary details, because this Lu Ming took care of the involvement and interest of people. The 2 assistants said in one voice that they had never heard Lu Ming's name before. In general, nothing about him. For himself, he decided that by any means he could get this very cultivation card with a Fruit Ninja, and then he could send it to their headquarters. This man ordered his subordinates to prepare the car. At the end, he added that he would definitely take possession of this card at any cost. Further events are again transferred to new characters. Now a man with a pumped-up body is engaged in the gym. The man asks the interlocutor how it happened that young master of creating maps manages to earn so much money at once. The boxer crunches his fingers and tells the assistant to immediately find out which of the illusionists helped Lu Ming in creating this card. This dark-skinned man turns out to be the owner of a large card store called Crystal Cards in the city of Qingming, and also his name is Jiang Chun. The events are transferred to the street where Lu Ming's store is located. A large crowd of people, already familiar in its number and size, creates a long queue. Lu Ming loudly, so that people on the street can also hear, notifies that he is sorry. But the institution is closing, so that's it for today. Someone comes out with a smile on his face and says that he will definitely return tomorrow, so let the owner prepare more cards. When he is alone in the room, Lu Ming begins to laugh slyly. The young man is sure that visitors will spread the news about his cultivation map to all their acquaintances. The young man already wanted to close the front door to his shop to go to rest after a long, hard, and full day of work. A stranger comes in. He says greetings in a velvety voice in the form of a good evening wish. The young man was already beginning to apologize and say that the card had already spent its energy for today, so the visitor should come another time. But at this moment, Lu Ming notices, in addition to the visitor, a large tiger with a bright and very fluffy coat. An animal with just a glance already subordinates a person. The guy then gets very, terribly scared, falls to the floor and tries to say hello to another visitor, namely a tiger, in a more or less calm voice. Lu sees 3 people in front of him. One of them, who stands in the middle, first of all asks the young man about his name, already knowing him from somewhere in advance. Lu Ming looked at the man in the suit in surprise, not believing his eyes. It turns out that the manager of the largest card store chain is standing in front of him. Then the young man Lu Ming realized how it would be necessary to behave in front of a client of such a plan and position. The guy quickly lifted on both legs and joyfully greeted the visitors with the words "Welcome." The man said that the good fame of the Lu Ming card store with the branded Fruit Ninja has already spread to all corners of the city. Lu Ming decided to pretend to be a silly boy, so he asked about the fact that Mr. Kaian Shenkai decided to meet him personally. The man immediately decided to say why he came here. Their company, in which he worked, wants to buy out the plan or schematics, as well as the design of Lu Ming's map for 100,000 yuan. The young man's gaze immediately sharpened. The young man abruptly and directly asked Mr. Kaian Shenzai that he was joking and playing him by naming such a sum. The young man added that only today his salary was 100,000. The man stood with a stony face on which nothing could be read. The man turned around and headed for the exit, adding that there is truth in this. But let the young man not think that everything is so simple. The idea of the cultivation card itself may be original, but its design and such a fruit illusion itself are rather mediocre and simple. The man added that he sincerely admired the ability, but he asked a rhetorical question to the young man. How many days he thinks it will take to create a copy of his card? And it was at that moment that the guy turned almost the whole body to the manager, turning the question over to the manager in order for him to answer himself. Mr. Kaian Shenkai turned an empty blank card into a black one with orange lines in a second, and right in front of Lu Ming's eyes. The man grinned slyly, clearly trying to intimidate the poor young man. He abruptly and loudly declared to the whole room that he would need no more than 1 day for this. He said that the whole day is the maximum, and so if you make some small investments of money, then it will all take just a couple of hours. Out loud, he made a prediction that tomorrow all the card shops will be completely filled with copies of the original cultivation card with Fruit Ninja. And then he said that the young man's card would simply become useless. After this phrase, the young man Lu Ming almost fainted. The man approached Lu Ming, and looking at him from above, said that in just 1 short day a person is able to get rich and lose absolutely everything. Mr. Kaian Shenkai squatted down. He handed Lu Ming his business card and told him not to delay the answer. As he left, he threw phrases like that, so that the young man would not delay with his answer, because after a couple of hours, the man would no longer need the Lu Ming cultivation card. After the man left, the guy for no reason crumpled the business card, and then tore it into small pieces so that it wouldn't hurt his eyes. Lu Ming grinned slyly and thought to himself that nothing would come of this strange manager, since the young man had already thought everything out for a long time. After a while, someone started knocking hard on the door of the card shop again and breaking in, while shouting and calling the owner by name with the addition of the word brother. Zhang Xiaoping didn't even say hello as he ran in, and once started shouting that he had just bumped into Mr. Kaian Shenkai. The main character said that this Mr. Kaian Shenkai came to buy an original card with a Fruit Ninja. He, in turn, hastened to say that Zhang Chun himself came to him, and then explained that he was the full owner of the Crystal Cards chain of stores. The main character did not expect to hear and find out such news, because somehow he did not even remember about his friend. Zhang Xiaoping exclaimed joyfully that he was finally recognized and all his virtues were seen. Lu Ming grabbed Zhang Xiaoping's shoulders with both hands and began to shake him violently. He called his friend a blockhead. It was necessary to sell. Zhang Xiaoping remained standing behind and began to let out bitter tears, as he did not understand his friend's reaction, because the cultivation card is his secret development. Lu Ming sat down at the cash desk and said that he had prepared a whole 300 original cultivation cards in order to arrange today's performance. The young man said that he did not think that he would be so stupid, but, however, he was a good friend, that is, the best and most loyal. The young man advised his friend to hurry up and contact Zhang Zhong as soon as possible to sell the card, because he would be unable to sell it tomorrow. Zhang Xiaoping asked about why the main character himself did not sell his drawings, diagrams, and design of the original cultivation map with a Fruit Ninja at that time. Lu Ming also had a prepared answer to this question. The guy raised his index finger up and said with a very important tone that this was already his personal secret. The next day, the manager's forecast turned out to be correct. All the card shops were packed with fruit ninjas. The shouts of sellers were heard everywhere. Someone promised a shrimp ninja for only 40 yuan, while adding a promotion that the top 3 players would receive a plate of delicious sea shrimp as a gift. Another seller shouted that there was an exclusive in his card shop, and that it was only there that it was possible to buy a cabbage ninja. In front of the building of the Izai company, people were crowding, who were invited to try their luck and try out all the new updates for the Fruit Ninja map. The man was in his office and was smiling quite broadly. Tomorrow afternoon, a copy of the Fruit Ninja cultivation card will appear in all branches of the Izai company. The assistant praises the boss and adds that he greatly respects the boss and brings him the most sincere congratulations. The man shares that probably in the near future he will be promoted to the manager of the headquarters, or for such merits in the work they can allocate some share in the company. The man continues to philosophize that business is business, so it doesn't matter who came up with the idea, because the main thing is who will cut down more money. In the end, a man with a proud smile says that the person who will cut down more money will be himself. At this very moment, one of the assistants, namely a short and plump one, loudly calls the boss, trying to notify him of new news as soon as possible. Hien Shenkai quickly turns around and asks without panic and unnecessary fuss to tell everything in detail exactly what happened. The assistant says that there is new news, and also that they are simply incredible. But in what sense incredible helps to understand his face. Hien Shenkai asks to notify him as soon as possible about what kind of news has surfaced, while adjusting his glasses. A plump man in a suit asks the manager not to worry in any way, and at this moment the boss snatches the tablet from his hands. After a few seconds, the man begins to yell loudly, as if he is being cut into pieces. He can't believe his eyes from the word at all. Hien Shenkai experienced such a huge stress that he fainted on his own back. 2 wards immediately rush to the boss. Further events are transferred to Zhang Chun, that is, the owner of a chain of card stores under the beautiful name Crystal Cards. He watches Lu Ming's video where the young man tells that initially this card was intended for ordinary commercial sales, but now he reveals its scheme. Lu Ming that children are the future, and this ninja cultivation card is his gift to the younger generations so that they are well developed physically. At the end of this short clip, the guy smiled and said goodbye, and once again said that the creator of the Fruit Ninja Lu Ming was with them. The man thought that the money he spent on financing the masters of creating maps and 48 illusionists was simply in vain. And then the man boiled. He began to squeeze both hands, saying the name of the main character several times. But then something happened that no one expected. He burst into tears bitter with grief, saying out loud that he would catch up with the young man. In Lu Ming's shop, a classmate enthusiastically said that his video was simply amazing. The whole internet knows about the existence of Lu Ming. Lu Ming only smiled sweetly once and said that everything was going according to plan, exactly as needed, exactly as he had planned earlier. To these words, Zhang Xiaoping asked his friend if he was sure that he was doing the right thing and would not regret it later. Zhang Xiaoping explained that while he leaked his own drawings on the Fruit Ninja, he crossed the road and offended the titans of the market, whose pockets are full of money. He hastened to reassure his friend, telling him not to worry about it. As long as these rich titans of the market have money, they will not be lost, but they will not touch him either. Lu Ming turned to a friend on the move, said that he had one request for a friend. He immediately asked that another bestseller was waiting for everyone in the near future. Lu Ming only said that at the moment he was not done with it yet, and firmly stated that it was the perfect time to move on to the final step of this sensation. The classmate narrowed both his eyes and stared at his friend, thinking to himself that Lu Ming was planning something very dubious again. The main character, in turn, replied that this part of the plan is the last on the list, but the most important of all the previous ones. The young man asked his classmate if he had ever heard of hype, advertising and earning money via the internet. Lu Ming had a clear plan in his head all this time. It is narrated that the cultivation card with Fruit Ninja from Lu Ming is now famous and is gaining incredible popularity with each new day. Now the masters of creating maps are developing many different types and versions of it. They are challenging and therefore wants to fight Lu Ming one-on-one. In one of them, the hosts invited 2 very famous card creators. One said that this card does not deserve a share of the popularity received at all. The second added that it looks very shabby, and its creator is even worse. The man said that he should give the young man Lu Ming his due in conducting business and the market. He is very good not only for a beginner, but also for a professional. The second added that the guy is just cannon fodder, which is trained in a simple technical school, and he will not be able to compete with the giants. Maybe the cultivation card from Lu Ming quickly shot up in popularity. However, unfortunately, the young man is not an illusionist and has never been one. And it turns out that the success of this card is really only a complete accident, and a successful combination of various circumstances. There are thoughts of an unknown person that in reality it is not worth following Lu Ming so closely, because he is only a good and smart businessman. And that's the point. It laughed and said that the illusion of Lu Ming is too easy and simple, adding that the structure is very lame. Such things do not last long on the market. The masters of creating maps with a huge experience behind the young man do not care even when Lu Ming raised such a fuss and caused a stir on a large scale. Although some old man got interested in this young youth named Lu Ming, he would still have to wait and see what would happen next. The events that happen next move to the main character. The action takes place on the set in front of dozens of different cameras and spotlights. The videographer guy notifies everyone present about the start of shooting and presses the button on the camera. The camera zooms in on a girl who says it's very hot here and she can't stand anymore. At the same moment, Lu Ming appears in the frame. The guy voices his words that this new ice cream will instantly cool everyone. Lu Ming is agitating everyone watching this advertisement to try this wonderful ice cream by themselves, not to be lazy, but to get up, get off the couch and go to the store. The young man showed the girl and Lu Ming who had filmed and performed their role a thumbs up, while praising that the work was done perfectly. The director added that it's hard to believe that Lu Ming is acting in an advertisement for the first time, or anywhere else. The young man has so much charisma that the main character laughed heartily. The young man sincerely thanked and asked to take care of him, communicating with the team in a very polite manner and with a respectful tone of voice. In addition, at the end of the whole process, Lu Ming remembered about the salary, to which he was told that the salary would be paid in the very near future. Now the main character himself showed his thumb pointing upwards. The young man's eyes were burning with joy, and it was written on his face that he was very happy. A friend held the phone during the entire filming process. He notified that 500,000 yuan had been credited to Lu Ming's bank account. He was in shock. Zhang Xiaoping went on to say that 500,000 yuan is the whole fortune of one person. He is also rapidly growing in popularity. Walking. The friend also added that it's much easier to just act in advertising than to be a master at creating maps. Zhang Xiaoping said that as soon as they earn a tidy sum together with him, then they will open a new card store and he will become his right hand. Upon hearing the proposals, the hero smiled slyly, adding that they would be able to earn a lot together and then put it in the bank at huge interest rates. Then, for no reason at all, the guy poked Zhang Xiaoping's cheek with his outstretched index finger and said that it was not harmful to dream. You need to hold your horses, because in order to stay afloat, you need to try to create new and interesting goods and products. But then the main character sighed bitterly and said that he had absolutely no new ideas yet. He needs to get back to the store with the cards as soon as possible and start studying the cards. Zhang Xiaoping was upset with this news, but decided not to escalate the already sad atmosphere. Friend to say, at least there will be a good opportunity to cover Lu Ming's debts. And also, even he earned some money. Zhang Xiaoping also reminded Lu Ming that tomorrow he will have another regular shooting in advertising. But Lu Ming was not particularly encouraged by this. Zhang Xiaoping asked his friend to have a good rest and get a good night's sleep, because tomorrow the guy is waiting for a car of all sorts of different work. Lu Ming responded to the concern of his classmate by saying that it was better to take a taxi himself, because he wanted to walk around the city at night. Zhang Xiaoping quickly caught a yellow taxi, and when he was already driving away, he shouted farewell words to his friend. Lu Ming first waved his hand, and then waited for the bright car with a friend inside to disappear around the corner, and went on his walking trip around the city. Lu Ming looked up at the starry night sky and smiled at the thought that his problem with sky-high debts had finally been successfully solved. Kicking the jar, he thought that there really are a lot of different interesting things here, but by and large, everything is the same as it was in a previous life. After that, Lu Ming finally decided for himself that since his past simple life was an ordinary office worker, he would climb to the very top in this world. Events are moved to another location. The place strongly resembles a landfill, but not very cluttered. The dust rises several meters above the rocky plates. A man can reason out loud, saying that he will most likely be able to get a decent amount of money for this piece of the edge of the card. A little further away, the shadows of two men are visible, who are discussing something violently. One man asks for time to think, the second loudly forbids doing it. Then the events return to the main character. An expensive racing car of a pleasant yellow color drives through the night streets of the city. Ming, who calmly walks out of the yellow car with a flying gait, asks Zhang Xiaopeng, who by the way is driving, to help return the car to the base. And when Ming is almost approaching the porch of his own shop, he hears that the young man is still the same handsome, and time does not spoil him at all. This person turns out to be an old man with a jeweler's eye. He says that he has already been waiting for him to wait. Memories click in Ming's head. It turns out that this nasty old man is a small local punk who is always hanging around on the outskirts of the city. Ming seriously tells this punk Shishanju that he will call the police, but he said that he had not come here to him for what the young man thought. The man grinned slyly and said that he had come here to sell one very interesting thing that would interest him very much. After a couple of seconds, the man pulled out pieces of the corners of the original gold card from his pocket. As a result of heavy battles or dangerous experiments, many cards cannot cope with their load that people have placed on them. So this meant that the map makers could study these weak energy lines in order to improve their drawings, diagrams, or design. Ming took thought about what about these, because they are special, which can be seen with the naked eye. Already inside, the man explains that these pieces are pieces of the legendary small gold card. He said he picked them up in a big skirmish where a lot of cards were damaged. He himself picked up only these two fragments of the legendary small gold card. The young man asked how much Shishanju wanted to get for these fragments. The young man begins to think about himself that he was crucified here for a reason during the story, so he clearly wants to lift the price tag as high as possible with all his heart. The young man abruptly begins to smile, and then asks how about 50,000. The old man Shishanju surprisingly quickly agrees. At this time, Ming stands with a stony face, because he is dissatisfied with the fact that the punk with the eyepiece so fleetingly agreed. Then the guy is sitting at the table. White blank sheets of various sizes are laid out in front of him, as well as those that he has already written and used. Ming has been drawing something for several hours, half the night long, writing, crossing out, writing again, and so on. After some time, he can't stand it and shouts loudly that during this time he didn't understand anything. Not a single brilliant idea hit his head. Ming grabs his head with both hands and screams like he's out of his mind that he can't cope with determining either the category or the rating. At the moment of his sudden movements, one piece of the corner of the legendary small golden card flew off and landed directly on the device into which the card is inserted. The young man notices a fragment of the map, which lies directly on the device. Ming's face turns serious and thoughtful again. After a few seconds, the guy is already redrawing the shape of the original map on the desk. The young man decided to restore this card in this way. As soon as this was over, Ming decided to try inserting it into the activator. The guy didn't expect anything special. Then he slowly and carefully pressed the only button on the entire device, which was right exactly in the middle. The guy took a few steps back and now found himself surrounded by a large white circle. The whole circle glowed with a bright white light, like the moon and stars at night. Ming opened his eyes and the first thing he thought was that nothing had worked. He was not very upset, because he did not expect much. At the same moment, next to his ear, someone sighed, someone who had a very gentle and delicate voice. Ming turned sharply over the same shoulder and could not believe his eyes. In front of him stood a young and very crooked girl who had a very beautiful figure. The first thing she did was shout to the young man that he was caught, and clung with a strong grip with both hands to his shoulders. The young man rumor said that although it was an illusion, but it was too real and realistic. There were no pixels around. The brunette, without taking her eyes off, looked attentively at the young man, and a romantic atmosphere was flying around. The girl grabbed Ming's right hand by the wrist. At that moment the young man's head was spinning like a tornado. Heat ran through his whole body, and he even screamed. Ming's head went from the feelings that overwhelmed him from different sides. It was the first time he felt a real touch. While the young man was in a state of euphoria with flushed cheeks, the girl reached for the knife with her free hand. She abruptly intercepted the sharp weapon in both hands, which she swung and raised up, that is, over her head. The guy was lying with a satisfied smile, and with his eyes closed, it's not clear what he was expecting. The young man's heart was beating wildly. At this time, in the real world, the card activator began to emit a strange screeching and quiet noise, which is why it began to break down because of the non-original card. Therefore, Ming abruptly transferred from the illusion of a piece of the legendary small gold card into reality, into her own shop. The young man was very upset that he returned so quickly without experiencing the illusion to the end. Lu Ming thought that everything was cut short due to lack of energy. The young man was shouting what could be heard on the street, calling the punk a scoundrel for the fact that no normal person would use such a cute card on the battlefield. At that moment, Lu Ming remembered about the existence of the second part of the legendary little golden card. Taking that in his hand, he realized that it would be unrealistically difficult to repeat the pattern of this fragment, and he would have to tinker more than with the previous one. And so he inserted a new card into the activator, shouting that this time he would not close his eyes. But after a couple of seconds, Lu Ming realized that everything was not going as planned. He got into some kind of matrix, which he called devilry. The young man's body began to blur. The face became tired, not oval, but round. The fingers of the hands turned into a snail shell, and the guy's eyes became in the shape of a crescent moon. After a couple of seconds, Lu Ming was already falling from a bird's eye view to the ground, in which it was the middle of the night at that time. After landing, the guy's head hurt so much, as if it had been hit with a hammer. Then, hearing a noise, he raised his head and saw something of unprecedented size. Right in front of the young man, a huge red snake lay at full length. Lu Ming was thinking as he got up that this fragment looked like part of a low-ranking map. At this moment, the snake, sensing movement from below, growled loudly and did not hiss, as is customary with reptiles. He was already preparing for an imminent death, kneeling down and covering his head with his hands, but nothing happened. The guy opened his eyes in surprise and saw this giant snake rushing towards some other small creature, from which a bright red light emanated. This small creature turned out to be a black cat. She had long-standing ears. In addition, the kitty had yellow eyes, which were lined with white at the bottom. On the surface, she seemed calm and unperturbed, but after a couple of seconds proved the opposite. The kitty pushed off the ground hard and jumped sharply at the red snake. He was 100 times bigger than a kitty in size. Then the cat opened its little mouth. At that moment, a blood-red tiger image appeared above the kitty. It turned out that she was his incarnation. Lu Ming just stood there all this time and didn't understand what was going on at all. The shockwave after the fall of the snake threw him to the side, and the same cat jumped down and came right up to the young man. He tried to crawl away at least a couple of meters from her, but Kitty caught up with him. The representative of the feline family grew dramatically in her own and put her simply gigantic paw on Lu Ming's head, which she immediately closed. The young man did not come up with anything smarter than to sit quietly like a mouse and not move, while not giving any signs of vital activity. He thought that maybe the cat takes the guy for an enemy, so he has no choice but to just pretend to be a rag and wait patiently. After a while, the cat acquired its original small size and settled comfortably in the lower abdomen of the guy in a sitting position. Lu Ming tried to gain trust by all possible means. The first thing he said was that it was written on his face that he was an angel, except that she was sitting on it with a stony expression on her face. The cat looked with strong suspicion, carefully squinting from time to time. She pricked up both erect ears and continued to stare with particular suspicion. Lu Ming was afraid of such actions. The plan conceived by the cat was not destined to come true, as a crack of glass was heard nearby. Both turned to the source of the sound and found that the atmosphere was bursting. The young man clenched the palm of his right hand into a fist and shouted joyfully that the moment of return had finally come, and the energy of the card was over. After that, the young man's body flew up. Lu Ming looked at the cat one last time, throwing a mocking smile, and said goodbye to the black cat. This illusion of the legendary small golden card finally collapsed, and the guy just began to fall into nowhere in pitch darkness and emptiness. Further events begin to take place on the dark streets of the city at night. Couples and one youth continue to walk along the sidewalks. At some point, the ground began to shake violently and people in a panic did not understand what was happening until the light came out of Lu Ming's store. When it was over, the man in pink hypothesized that it was a powerful earthquake, and everyone around agreed with his opinion. And the events moved to Lu Ming's shop. The young man painfully lands his knees on the tiled floor of his own establishment and tries to catch his breath. Lu Ming, getting up, said that he had seen these terrible cards in the coffin. He mentally cursed that punk and promised that he would get a boomerang for such a product. At this time, Lu Ming heard a strange sound behind him. It was a cat's long-drawn meow. He turned his head slightly to the side and saw the black paws of a cat. The young man did not even have time to get to his feet, but already saw a black cat from the very illusion that somehow moved with him. The young man thought to himself about whether this cat really managed to get out of the world of illusions of cards. He didn't even know if such a transfer from illusions was possible. Lu Ming fell back on his poor fifth point, trying to somehow cover himself with his right hand. He thought to himself that everything was not going according to plan. The cat flew at the guy while putting both front paws full length forward. Lu Ming, in turn, said that he loves cats very much. Then something happened that Lu Ming never expected. However, the cat jumped into Lu Ming's mouth, causing him to open his eyes wide. Then the guy breathlessly fell back on the same cold tiled floor as soon as the representative of the feline fit in the body of the young man in full size. Lu Ming woke up as soon as his consciousness returned to normal. He found himself in the endless expanse of heaven and space. There was only a bottomless universe around, which included twinkling galaxies, colorful stars, burning planets, as well as white balls. The young man realized that these fireflies are energy. Lu Ming also realized that he was standing with his feet in a sea of consciousness that was not like the waters of the world. It turns out that the Sea of Creation is such a peculiar place that was created to store the original maps of the Master of Creation, for whom it is simply priceless. Lu Ming looks around several times. He does not understand why he got here, if he is not an illusionist and a master of creating maps. The young man decided to run around the area, as he suggested that maybe this Sea of Consciousness was created for his original map. At the same time, a rectangular thing that radiated light appeared in front of his face. Lu Ming stopped at this spot and carefully looked at the original orange map hanging 50 centimeters away. There was a black cat sitting next to the original card, which still quite inadequately got into the young man's mouth. Further events occur after some time. Zhang Xiaoping came running, telling him to look at the ranking of internet search queries. Everything is bad. Now the first place was taken by the news sensation that the author of the divine creator of maps is running around the streets naked. The second place was taken by Lu Ming. Both guys tensed up and began to think about a new brilliant plan. Of course, Lu Ming also wanted to be on the first line of the rating. The events are transferred from the continuation of the story of how Lu Ming got into the Sea of Consciousness of the original map. Kitty abruptly opened her huge mouth and exposed all her fangs. Lu Ming thought that since he was the only living creature here besides the cat itself, then it would hunt him. But it was not there. A gigantic black cat exposed its claws and released its fangs on the original map, which was peacefully hanging in the air. At these moments, the main character's face was distorted in a martyr's grimace of pain, as if a black cat had pierced into the young man himself, and not into the original card. But the young man gathered in himself the last grains of courage and bravery. He ran towards her with all the anger he had accumulated by this time. Lu Ming was rushing almost at the speed of light. The guy was waving both hands in different directions and shouting why she was doing it. Due to the flick of the black cat's tail, dozens or even hundreds of arrows flew at the guy. The young man did not have time to prepare for this in any way, and was just scared. So all those dozens of arrows directed by Kisa stabbed Lu Ming with all their strength. Lu Ming was now completely struck by his entire body and fell backwards. But after a while, Lu Ming still came to his senses. Now the young man was standing in the middle of this place, and right at the bridge of his nose was a sharp arrow. But it turned out that it was not an arrow at all. It was the sharp tip of the tail of a black kitty. You could even say that one thin hair. Suddenly, at some point, the sharp needle of the cat's tail disappeared. The young man shifted his gaze a little lower and noticed how the back of the kitty began to rapidly decrease in size. The cat itself abruptly flopped on its side, falling into the water with all its tiny body. Lu Ming only noticed a black tail sticking out of the sea. Lu Ming began to examine the cat's body while standing a meter away from the kitty, and noticed a deep scratch on the left hind leg. He realized that it turns out that the cat was wounded in the last illusion of a piece of the legendary small gold card. The young man is seriously thinking about what he should do now. Now it became clear that the cat was behaving so aggressively because of the injury. She thought that everything that surrounds her promises her danger and wants to harm. She looked at the young man with special suspicion, as she had done before. After all, the cat continued to worry for her life and wait for danger from the outside world. But the main character could see that Kisa was in a lot of pain and bad. Therefore, I pulled my hand to the cat in order to stroke it later. He smiled sweetly and sincerely, which made his entire facial expression soften and become more tender. Lu Ming was smiling the whole time. Lu Ming asked the black cat out loud not to be afraid of him, even though he had a little energy left, but he would cure her. Kisa's gaze was greatly clouded due to the fact that she had experienced such a severe pain shock. Lu Ming asked the cat not to worry so much. When Lu Ming finished the healing process, he decided to turn towards the original map. There were about 6 long cracks on it now. He got to his feet, walked over to the original map and ran his fingers over the bite mark. Lu Ming rumor said that he didn't even know if he could fix it at all now. The young man turned with a wave of one hand and said that let everything be as it will be. He asked her not to bite everything anymore, she's not a dog. She looked at the guy wearily, without giving any signs of attention or agreement with the words of the main character. Lu Ming bent down to her. He grinned and said that silence was also a sign of agreement and gave her a thumbs up. Further events moved to another character named Shishanju. Someone hit him so hard that he flew several meters away. Shishanju groaned painfully as soon as he stopped from the moment of the flight, and mumbled that he had already told everything and did not understand what fragment he was talking about. He began to mumble to himself that only in the last month more than 10,000 were bought from him and he could not remember everything. It turned out that the one who interrogated was that terrible creature, and next to it was a monster of bright purple color in the height of a 9-story house. The old man tearfully began to beg not to do this to him, to forgive and not to kill because of ignorance. Shishanju began to bow pitifully with his hands. After a couple of seconds, there wasn't a crumb left of old Shishanju. The purple huge monster, swinging with all its might, crushed the punk. The creature in the dark green cloak took out a card with the image of the same black cat from the world of illusions. Aloud, he asked if, in fact, he was too late. The cloaked creature desperately said that the original map made sense only because of who is drawn in the image. It desperately asked out loud about who took the black cat. Events are transferred to Lu Ming. He has just woken up, so he tells his whole small apartment that a new day means new improvements. At the same moment, the main character heard a loud noise and uproar outside his house and a card shop. As soon as Lu Ming came out on the porch, he saw a crowd of people and 2 yellow excavators. The young man thought about how it was possible not to love his own colleagues. Lu Ming became a casual witness of the conversation. Almost all the shops in the area were looted, and the guards were killed, although the shops are located in the city center. Then the girl added that the robbers even seized the Izai network, in which the manager Kyan Shenkai had previously worked in a purple suit. The young man was in shock. When the main character approached the fence, he saw rescuers in orange suits carrying out the corpses of injured guards and ordinary people. The main character stumbled upon a collapsed card store in Dong Pan's house and realized that he had been hit very hard. Everything was torn apart and smashed. Lu Ming then went to a card shop that no one had ever looked into at all. It was located on the very corner of the house. The main character was in shock. He did not think that this new modern world is so full of house and ruin. He didn't think that such evil people lived here. The main character slowly returned to his own shop and thought about how it happened. Everyone just didn't touch his store. At that moment, someone put his hand on Lu Ming's shoulder, saying with a grin that there was nothing strange, because the shed of the main character was simply not noticed. It was Zhao Xiaopeng. He said he had prepared something interesting. The main character became interested and asked to tell what he could find out. At that moment, Zhang Xiaopeng took out a paper. He shouted out that the academy had notified the students about the beginning of the internship outside of it. Immediately after that, both guys laughed heartily. The main character bent over with laughter and managed with simple gratitude. The main character turned around with his whole body, while impressively throwing out this yellow leaf. Zhang Xiaopeng immediately shouted why he threw the paper away. Lu Ming said sullenly that there was only one name for the practice itself. In fact, the academy simply supplies factories with free labor. A friend said that this year the internship will take place already in the most famous mine called Amiro, to which Lu Ming said that he would not participate there anyway. He then asked a friend if he had battle cards that consumed about 60 points of internal energy, to which he asked why he needed them. The main character began to explain to a friend that this area in which they live has now become unsafe. But this is the epicenter of the city where most of the population lives. Zhang Xiaopeng, as the best friend and person on the planet, replies that Lu Ming turned to the right address and reached into his pocket. Zhang Xiaopeng took out a 1-star spirit card with the big name Wild Dash. He gave it away for 998 yuan. After that, the friend hurried away from the store as soon as possible, shouting that Lu Ming would not forget about him if business matters arose. Lu Ming quickly entered a query on the internet and found out that the card itself costs 50 yuan, and 1,000 yuan should be paid for the drawing. Lu Ming started swearing at his friend that he had deceived him again. Lu Ming was so angry that he almost threw out his work computer. After a few minutes of thinking aloud, he said that it would be most profitable to buy a drawing for this original map called Wild Jerk. After that, the hero proceeds to the map and says that the whole thing is quite interesting, because even though the fluctuations of internal energy are small, but there are high jumps. The creation of this map can be safely equated in cost to about 3 watermelon ninjas. Lu Ming continues his soap, saying that most likely the entire rate of increase will be much higher than it has ever been before. Thus, the young man slowly created 9 identical and simply identical cards that consume about 60 points of internal energy. Lu Ming came up with the idea that this whole situation has a very good effect. After all, the internal energy of the card has increased by as much as 0.5%. If the result of his work is very good, then you will still have to take and use an energy replenishment card in order to, and this is already very expensive. Then a brilliant idea came to Lu Ming's mind that it was possible to use a catalyst for activation. He went to the catalyst, thinking that encapsulation requires exactly 60 units of energy, which is exactly as much as he needs. The energy will have to calculate the right time for the flash of abilities, and only after that the most original card will be released at the right moment. In order for Lu Ming to become a powerful and strong master of creating maps, he will simply need to master the encapsulation technique perfectly. He managed to press the only button on the entire device for maps, which meant that it was indispensable to turn on. After that, the main character stamped one foot and loudly said that the card called Wild Jerk was successfully activated, after which he began counting down. The main character put both his hands forward and caused the original card to awaken. At that moment, the whole room of the shop lit up with bright colors. Multicolored lines that came from the card and the activator began to play everywhere. Apparently Lu Ming's plan worked successfully. Right before the eyes of the main character, a healthy bull appeared, which outwardly followed the full description of the bull in the picture of the original map. At that moment, Lu Ming realized that he had achieved the result he had dreamed of so much. He still couldn't believe his shocked eyes and ears. This card, which consumes about 60 points of internal energy, called Wild Dash, is his first original card. He couldn't believe it. While the main character was rejoicing, he completely forgot that he was standing in front of a wild and aggressive bull. Then the young man realized that he had screwed up, since he could not be distracted. Lu Ming realized that it was time to act urgently, otherwise he would just die right now. The young man folded and clapped his 2 palms in connection with which blue smoke began to blow from inside them. After that, he quickly raised his upper hand, which covered the second one, and took out a card from there. A second later, he was on his knees in his card shop and cursing under his breath. The guy talked about what he managed to seal, even though it was creepy. Then he looked at his hand, which held the card, but was horrified. The map was only a quarter full, meaning it was missing most of the bull drawing. He picked at the map many times, not understanding at all what was wrong with it. He even suggested that the black cat was to blame. But as soon as the young man looked at its backside, he saw that the drawing on the back of the card was exactly the same as in the drawing. Then what was the problem? Lu Ming even resorted to a computer and the internet in order to properly understand this situation. He found information about segment coverage. One master of creating a high-level map came up with a special technique while using segment coverage. He was even more surprised with this news. He thought that maybe he was lucky again and luck was on his side, since such a good and very useful accident had happened. Lu Ming got up from his desk and decided to try again in order to fully verify his hypothesis. The main character approached the activator, inserted an original card into it, which consumes about 60 points of internal energy. The wild animal certainly appeared a few steps away, but this time Lu Ming was not stupid, but immediately took action. But the bull was already flying at him at a wild speed. Lu Ming moved his outstretched left hand towards him, and meanwhile, between both palms, he began to hold a card that glowed bright red. Everything ended as quickly as the first time. Lu Ming found himself no longer sitting on his knees, but standing on his 2 legs, which were in a half-bent position. He held the original card between 2 hands and then opened it. All these theories of the main character, fortunately, were confirmed. This makes the task much easier, and also, in addition, pleases with unsurpassed luck. Lu Ming can't get enough of his favorite map. A young man called the cat a miracle. She scratched that card in order to give the young man segment coverage. Lu Ming continued his further thoughts. The young man remembered that each segment of the coverage is a separate new ability of the wizard to create maps. Now the main character realized that, based on all of the above facts, his original map can encapsulate 7 of the same. That is why Lu Ming, according to the same old scheme, inserted each of the following 5 cards into the activator, pressed the button and activated them. Once Lu Ming trained his hand more and more to create a seal and seal. Time after time, the young man uttered the same word seal. When all these procedures were over, Lu Ming looked at his favorite first original card and said that after everything, Everything merged together. Lu Ming only averted his gaze for a second, and when he returned it, he saw a small bull, and not a formidable, wild, and aggressive one. The young man stared and was surprised for the first time in a day. He never understood what went wrong, and why a healthy bull turned into his childhood version. He already began to think about the sad, namely, that the merger of parts of the segment coverage had failed in disgrace. But when he brought the card closer to his face, Poe realized that she just needed 300 units, or simply put, points of the inner energy of the young man. Lu Ming thought that while he was creating this map, he had greatly increased his internal energy reserve, which is already quite good. After much thought, he finally decided to call the card the Thunderous Bull. Although he had no idea how powerful this bull was, but it required a lot of energy. Further events moved to other characters. That manager of the Yizai company. The assistant tells his boss to take a look at the portrait of the tiger. He begins to talk out loud about the fact that the colors and lines seem simple, but they still breathe strength and power. The manager praises the artist. Then the man asks when such talented artists appeared in their city. The assistant replies that he found it in the Association of Map Makers. The man says that our work will definitely win in the art competition. When the very day of the contest came, the people who came to this exhibition enthusiastically talked only about this picture with the image of a tiger. A Miro mine, located in the southern part of Ming City. It is located at an altitude of 48 meters above sea level, and is known as Ming Laurel. There are more than 300 mines located here. The event takes place at the Risnai plant for the production of energy ore. A bus pulls in there, and from there someone says that this will be the internship places for those who have arrived. Everyone was asked to pack their things and get ready to leave. Most people were in practice for the first time, and at the factory in principle. Everyone was looking forward to the practice. Someone took a lot of snacks with them to have a picnic, because the air was amazing. One of those present began to complain to Miss On that someone had only food in their bag, and another had a game console. Miss On made it clear that all snacks and game consoles would have to be put away, otherwise she would do it for them. Miss Yu was a 3-star teacher of the elements. The guys lined up behind Miss On. The guy standing behind her decided to find out if there really are great entertainment and recreation places here. Miss On replied that anything is possible, but this is her first time here. Everyone became interested in learning more about entertainment, although they understood that they might be paid. Miss On said everyone would find out later. There were still 2 passengers in the doorway of the bus, the main character and a red-haired young man who looked after Miss On with loving eyes. Lu Ming was standing behind him. He began to mimic his friend, and the red-haired guy was horrified that someone had heard him. He, with round eyes, turned sharply towards the sound and saw Lu Ming waving at him. Comrade B fell into a real rage and was already preparing to pounce on the hero, so he even began to clench his fist, but restrained himself, asked Lu Misha what he needed. Lu Ming was just in a state of shock and did not understand why his friend reacted like that, because he just wanted to make a joke. Relations were heating up between them. Lu Ming reached into his pocket for his card. Suddenly, a young man who came here with the hero approached the bus. He didn't understand what those 2 were doing, because they were all about to be distributed in the dormitory, so Miss On asked to find the laggards and send them to the gathering place. Lu Ming relaxed a little, and the red-haired guy calmed down, got off the bus and headed towards the gathering place. After getting off the bus, Lu Ming straightened his hair and exhaled with relief, because the fight was avoided. He thanked his friend for helping him out. The stranger who decided to help was Ziyu, who had the profession of an archer. The young man told Lu Ming that it was not worth thanking him, and he also advised him not to get involved with that red-haired guy, because he is cruel, so even he has to avoid him. Lu Ming stared at Ziyu for a second, because his bow looked impressive, but he could not understand why there was only 1 arrow in the quiver. Lu Ming asked Ziyu what the red-haired guy's name was, to which the blonde young man replied that his name was Chang Liang. Chang is like Fai King, and Liang is like Liang Guang. Lu Ming, laughing, introduced himself, saying that he was a sophomore. Ziyu also introduced himself and said that he was a freshman, and his specialty was an archer. The hero has already started calling his specialty that Ziyu beat him to it, calling him the creator of the cards because of the deck in his hands. The guys finally went into the dorm, and the table was already set there. The products were divided by type. There was a sign next to each plate, and there was also food for cultivation on the table. Food for cultivation. This is a food made from meat containing powerful energy and alcoholic herbs as a side dish. They have a very beneficial effect on further cultivation. Everyone was standing near the table and licking their lips. Everyone wanted to try something as soon as possible. Food for cultivation was food made from masa and containing powerful energy. Someone guessed that the hostel was on a genuine level. The highest level could be exchanged for a training hall. The training hall was a room specially prepared for cultivation. The energy concentration in the room is extremely high, so due to this, a high cultivation rate is achieved. The guys went all over the dorm, even came across equipment for virtual fantasy games. It was from the premium segment. This is a completely realistic gaming device. Many have heard that there is absolutely everything in such a realistic game. Even the legendary hot girls. Suddenly, someone snapped his fingers and attracted all the attention of the students. The man began to tell that their Rasnai plant is striving to harmonize management, and for this, students just need to exchange energy stones extracted during the internship. For every 100 grams, students received special points. They could be exchanged for all kinds of entertainment. He also motivated those present by the fact that the more they work together, the more they will be able to get, because there were no restrictions. He stretched out his hand to the aisle and said that as long as the students have enough glasses, they can enjoy anything. All the guys were very happy because their task was very simple. All they had to do was dig. Someone even wanted to blow up the mine and squeeze all the ore out of it. The only ones who stood aside were Ziyu and Lu Ming. Lu Ming, stroking his chin, called everyone a bunch of newcomers, and Ziyu looked at his friend in surprise. Ziyu said that Lu Ming looks very calm. Apparently, he had been here before. Lu Ming gasped at his comrade's guesswork. The hero confirmed that Ziyu's guess is correct, because she came here earlier when she was a freshman. He also noticed that Ziyu also looked very calm. The young man replied that he was just pretending to be calm, but in fact his heart was already beating like crazy. His grandfather said that as a real man, Ziyu should not be afraid even if Mount Tai collapses. These words surprised Lu Ming. Lu Ming is very wary, because he does not understand what Ziyu is talking about, but it seems that he has a well-developed intuition, so he seems suspicious. The hero decided to stay away from Ziyu, so he turned around and went about his business, because no one should know about his intentions to steal the mine, because otherwise his whole plan would fail miserably. The next day, Miss On was standing on a hill. She was talking about their first day of mountain practice starting soon. Their task will be only one thing: to dig a mine. All the students stood around and, picking up her words, began to repeat after her, raising their shovels and picks. The trucks were heading into the mine tunnel at number 59. Inside, the mine is divided into two zones. The one above the ground is a mining zone, and the one below the ground is a zone with many intricate mines intertwining with each other. The zone under the ground is really by no one. It has not yet been mastered. Students began to earn points. Everyone took pickaxes and began to hammer light blue glowing stones. Chang Liang tried the hardest. In just one morning, he managed to dig up a whole bag of energy stones. Someone thought that more than a dozen talents were needed to be successful in resource extraction. Chang Liang replied that his friend was not so bad either, and he looked out of the corner of his eye in the direction of the young man eating instant noodles. The red-haired youth said, looking at Lu Ming, that he, being a sophomore, was just a jerk. No one understood why he was eating noodles, so it was assumed that he was worried that he would not have enough strength to dig up as much as the others. The young men were not even sure that Lu Ming had dug up at least something, and another reported that he had seen the hero and how he was playing with a piece of iron 2 hours ago. They made a general conclusion that Lu Ming is not himself. Chang Liang, moving towards the exit, said that he had enough energy stones to exchange them for food for cultivation. The others decided to go to the exit too. Someone added that they were not going to exchange stones for food for cultivation, but a large portion would be enough to satisfy hunger for a long time. Someone also said that those who have not dug up a stone should worry about food. Someone suddenly came up to Lu Ming and said that he really hadn't dug up a piece. That someone was a cute green-haired girl. Lu Ming scratched his head and said that he was a little ashamed because he was not particularly good at this kind of thing. Then the girl suggested that Lu Ming has poor control over the energy of the stone, which is why she feels bad. She says that at first she had the same thing, but the more worried she was, the more often she blacked out. She advised him to calm down so that his concentration would get better at times. For example, he may think of something good to calm down. The hero gasped from misunderstanding. The girl held out 2 glowing stones and said that she would give him these 2 pieces so that the hero could go and buy himself something to eat. The young man was surprised, but did not forget to thank the girl. She turned around and walked away, and then waved to the hero, saying that he would try tomorrow and then he would definitely be able to get some ore. The main character, looking after her, was delighted with the girl's act, so he called her beautiful. He got up from the floor, putting down 2 pieces of blue ore. Then he straightened up and breathed a sigh of relief because finally all the people had left. Now it's time for the show. Saying these words, the hero began to stretch his hands. Suddenly he rushed from the spot, grabbed the crystal and said that this morning he noticed that to absorb the energy from the stone, just touch it. Sitting down, he continued to analyze. If one touch is enough, it means that he does not need to dig out the crystal, because you can draw a simple map that will absorb energy. He immediately began to draw cards with the image of an energy crystal, and after a while there was already a whole mountain of them. Drawing more and more, the hero realized that after creating a certain number of cards, he could move on to the next step, and then, using the energy of the cards, he would be able to replenish his own energy. Then he will be able to draw Thunder Bowl cards with a complex pattern. Eventually, he can turn the energy of the stones into cards, and then absorb this energy, and then create the Thunder Bowl cards over and over again. Exhaling, the hero, holding a small number of cards in his hands, said that all this was incredible, because those cards were nothing other than the Thunderous Bull cards, which he was able to create in just a couple of hours. Also, after absorbing a large amount of energy crystals, his own energy reserve rose by more than 30 points. From such joy, the hero could not restrain his laughter. Suddenly someone came too close to the hero and he, noticing people in work clothes, was incredibly surprised, because no one was supposed to know about his idea. A brigade of a man in hard hats passed by Ming, and behind them a man of large build and a girl with pink hair. After passing by, she looked at the main character, but without saying anything, she went on. Ming recognized ordinary miners and people, but he could not understand why they continue their work when they should rest the same way as students who came to practice. Ming thought about a man with a strong physique and a pink-haired girl, because these two did not look like ordinary miners, especially a girl who seemed to be the same age as the main character. Ming realized that something was wrong here. At some point, Ming realized that perhaps those people had come here at such a time to steal the energy of the stones just like himself. Scratching his head, he took the bag with the words that it did not matter for what reason those people came here, to steal stones or for some other reason. But they ignored him, so there is a high probability that he will not be reported. He is incredibly tired, so now the most important thing is to find a place for a tent to be able to sleep and gain strength for tomorrow. On the second day of practice, the sun shone bright and scorching. Walking along the dark shaft, one of the students said that all those gorgeous entertainments that they were shown were just for demonstration. Another student said that the cheapest lunch costs 5 points, and with current prices they have to work 10 hours a day to get food. Others complained that their bodies hurt a lot. One of the young men didn't have enough points for ordinary food, let alone food for cultivation, so they all need to send a complaint about this mine. Someone even understood why Ming ate noodles on the first day. One of the interns told the second one not to worry, because yesterday was their first time, so he thinks that once they gain experience, it will not be so difficult for them. The second agreed with him. Miss On, trying to support her students, waved to them and asked them not to despair, because the purpose of their practice is to teach work and gain life experience. So you only need to go forward. Chang Liang clenched his fist, a flame appeared in his eyes, and all because he completely agrees with Miss N, because they are here to improve their physical qualities, and not to be idle. He asked everyone to get to work. There was silence after his words, but all the students picked up Chang Liang's mood and started shouting that they would only go forward. Running straight to the crystals, they shouted that today they had to dig twice as much as yesterday. And someone even said that they would dig 3 times as much as yesterday. And someone dared to say that they could even dig 4 times more. In the next moment, finding piles of empty gray crystals, the faces of the trainees reflected surprise and misunderstanding of what was happening. Someone couldn't figure out if this was exactly the place that was yesterday, and what could have happened overnight. At this time, Ming was walking along the stone path. He sighed and said that he was really done with this place. Now his energy has increased by 10 points. Looking at the map, he thought that at this rate, he would definitely have more than 300 energy points before the end of practice, and then he would be able to use his bull card. Suddenly, he discovers that there is no further passage, because right above the passage there is a sign saying that it is unsafe inside, so no water is allowed to outsiders. The hero looked at the warning and realized that he had come here unknowingly. In fact, the mine is rich in minerals, so the biggest danger in such mines are landslides. The hero realized that the chance of collapsing here is much higher, although the chance of any other dangers is also not small. After thinking about whether he should go inside, he still heads straight to just look around. Walking through the cave, the hero saw only darkness and heard water dripping from the ceiling. He realized that the cave was actually gloomy. To avoid collision with workers, he can only go through various forks, avoiding the main roads. Lu Ming doesn't know how long he has been walking for, however, he still doesn't see the mine. He does not understand what to do, and thoughts of returning creep into his head. Suddenly he hears someone rustling and his whole body is covered with goosebumps. Turning around, he sees an orange tent and a tin can rolling out of it. Involuntarily, he thought, looking at the tent, that there might be people there who decided to just relax in the middle of a gloomy and damp cave. Coming closer to the tent, Lu Ming asked a question about those present inside, and then decided to unzip the zipper to look inside. What he saw plunged him into the deepest shock. Inside were the girl who helped him by giving him 2 crystals, as well as his friend Zhang Xiaoping. The two were lying in an embrace and innocently sleeping, and meanwhile Lu Ming was looking down at them. Zhang Xiaoping, having mumbled through his sleep, involuntarily opened his eyes and then recognized Brother Lu in the presence. Suddenly Lu Ming realized that this girl was not the one who helped him with the crystals. Zhang Xiaoping awkwardly explained that this girl next to him is not real. He said that this practice of creating a perfect copy is quite difficult, so he created it to make it a little more comfortable here. Touching the doll on the cheek, Lu Ming said that his friend created this copy not only to make it a little more comfortable here, because it is exactly like the real one, so you can assume a lot, but the young man shouted that the doll and he are absolutely clean. Putting his hand on his chest, Zhang Xiaoping said that he really likes Xena, but he does not dare to approach her yet, so he came up with the idea of creating a doll to fill his loneliness. After letting out a tear, he asks Brother Lu Ming to understand his sincere feelings. Putting his hand on Zhang Xiaoping's shoulder, Lu Ming says that he plans to make a new map later, but he lacks an illusionist, so he asks his friend to help him. With a broken heart, Zhang Xiaoping says that he poured out his whole soul to Lu Ming, and he turned out to be so frivolous. Lu Ming didn't understand what his friend wanted from him. He suggested that he would like Lu to talk about making a replica of her in the form of a doll to spend the night with her. Grabbing Lu Ming by the shoulders, Zhang Xiaoping asked him about the illusion, namely whether the hero wants a simple illusion, because he can help him without problems. The hero asked about the price in this case. Zhang Xiaoping, folding his hands into a fist and covered in cold sweat, said that the price would be free, because there can be no question of money between friends. Smiling, the hero agreed with his friend, and then asked him about the route along which a larger deposit of energy stones could be discovered. After a while, Zhang Xiaoping led the hero to a large cluster of energy crystals. The sight alone can take your breath away. The hero happily said that the energy of these cameos is 10 times cleaner than those that were outside, so he immediately grabbed the crystal and felt all the energy of the stone alone. Lu Ming realized that with so many stones within 2 days, his goal of 300 points could be achieved, so from now on he would train in creating maps and no one would interfere with him. Zhang Xiaoping warned his friend to be careful because he might be found by a miner, because this place is close to the next mining zone. Workers in these places work 24 hours a day, so you need to be very careful. At this time, a huge drilling machine was making a hole right under it. All this was observed by a man of large build and a girl with pink hair who appeared earlier. In the neighboring zone, drilling operations were taking place. The workers dug to the designated point, but there was nothing there. The girl with pink hair said that we need to keep digging. The workers were against it. The maximum safe depth has been reached. If they continue to dig down, then this can lead to an imbalance in the support points of the mine, which can lead to a collapse. The pink-haired girl went to blackmail. She said if he refuses to work, he won't even get a penny. The worker was indignant. He did not understand how people could be used like that and risk their lives. After all, they agreed, but the girl replied that the higher the risk, the better the reward. She also said that if they continued to dig, she would pay them 5 times the agreed amount. The worker was very surprised by this statement. The 4th day of practice. The students are already tired of working. They decided that they would rather starve than dig this damn energy stone. Someone said that this was the worst period of his life. They cursed the company for 3 days during which they had not eaten. This on came to check. The woman asked if anyone had seen Lu Ming. One student said that he had not seen him yet today, and the second, remembering how he ate instant noodles, said that maybe he had already escaped, unable to withstand the load. The woman, putting her hand on her log, sighed heavily and said that perhaps it was all her fault. This work practice was her first, but she didn't think it would be so hard. At this time, Ziyu and Chang Liang were walking around the mine. Chang Liang said they shouldn't walk in this area, so they had to go back. He asked Ziyu if he really hoped to find Lu Ming here. Ziyu replied that he wasn't sure what hit Chang Liang. However, he added that they had checked all the places except this one, so Lu Ming should definitely be here. Chang Liang told Ziyu not to leave him alone because he didn't want to get into trouble with Miss. At this time, Lu Ming was still near the stones and counting the number of his cards. At some point, their number reached 300 and he jumped up from his seat, rejoiced at the completion of his business. All this took him 4 days, but the base energy finally reached 300 points. The hero was delighted, calling himself a genius. Looking at his Thunder Bull card, he realized that now he could finally use it. Just as Lu Ming wanted to use the card, Chang Liang and Ziyu appeared behind him. They were very happy to see him. Ziyu waved sweetly at Lu Ming, who in turn froze with round eyes. Chang Liang said he immediately realized that Lu Ming was a bad guy. He asked, pointing at the hero with his finger, if he was really trying to decorate all the stones. Ziyu looked at the upstart with disdain. Lu Ming went into shock, but tried to quickly come up with an excuse, scratching his head at the same time. He called this situation a coincidence, because he assumed that Ziyu and Chang Liang were also lost. Chang Liang asked Lu Ming to shut up and stop acting like a fool, because he was caught stealing stone in accordance with Section 1356 of the Minerals Act. He involuntarily approached Ziyu and asked if he remembered how the law was interpreted further, but Ziyu simply looked away and remained silent. Suddenly he spoke up and said that Article 1356 stated that energy mines are state property, and any person who carries out mining, seizure and theft without permission, regardless of the volume, is subject to punishment, which is characterized as a crime of theft of state property. Lu Ming, having closed his eyes and waved away, did not understand what his comrades were talking about now, because they have no evidence that Lu Ming stole stones. Reaching into his pocket, Ziyu said that he had proof, and then showed the camera with the words that he foresaw Lu Ming's lies, so he recorded the whole process of theft in high resolution from a distance. Lu Ming, looking at the camera, could not believe that he had been caught by these troubled guys. He didn't understand how they knew if they accidentally stumbled upon him. Ziyu explained that he had been watching Lu Ming since the very first day. After listening to him, he realized that Lu Ming was well aware of their practice, after which Lu Ming disappeared. This has already attracted Ziyu's attention. He had a very good intuition. Later, when he was engaged in mining, he discovered that the original mining sites on the outside mostly contained empty stones, which amounted to about 15%. He said that Lu Ming is really smart and knows how not to attract attention. Moreover, the deeper the mine was, the greater the percentage of empty stones. Sometimes it reached up to 50%. Perhaps Lu Ming thought that no one would attach importance to this, but he clearly underestimated them. He could not even guess that they would go so far. Also, in many mines with empty stones, Ziyu found packages of instant noodles. Putting it all together, Ziyu was almost certain that the mysterious second-year Sir Lu Ming was involved in everything. Lu Ming was furious. He tried to avoid Ziyu, but he still caught up with him. He was a very troubled man. Although Lu Ming had hundreds of Thunder Bull cards in his hand, all the energy cards were used up. However, his base energy of 300 points is enough to use one card. The hero didn't care, because if he screwed up, he would be put in jail, so he had to take the phone and destroy all the evidence. Lu Ming took out the card, held it up, was about to use it, but did not have time. Ziyu took out his phone, found the video, and clicked delete. The video has been deleted from all devices. Ziyu turned over the phone, and showed Lu Ming an empty folder without a single proof. Chang Liang stood in disbelief, just like Lu Ming. Chang Liang didn't understand what the hell was going on, what they were doing this way for. Ziyu said that his intuition tells him so, and so far it has not let him down. Chang Liang was angry. He couldn't believe it was just a matter of intuition. Ziyu said they shouldn't send him to jail yet. Chang Liang threatened to tell Miss and everything, but this time Chang Liang had no proof, but he didn't care. Chang Liang turned around and was about to leave when suddenly stones began to fall from the ceiling. While Chang Liang and Ziyu didn't understand what was going on, Lu Ming quickly grabbed his briefcase and headed to run with everyone. Lu Ming said that you need to run very fast, as the mine could collapse at any moment. If they can hurry, they will have time to reach the safe zone. Oddly enough, this rockfall was felt no less from the outside. On the radio, all the workers were passing news to each other that the mine would soon collapse, and they needed to get out as soon as possible. Some were already lying under the rubble of stones. Someone was killed to death. Someone may have been lying alive under the rubble. One of the workers came to the boss and said that Chang Liang, Lu Ming, and Ziyu were doomed to die. A picture formed in the boss's head. He understood why they were forced to dig here. The girl with pink hair and her tall friend were the only ones calm. They were discussing that the location was really right, and what they needed was really here. They finally found them. Everyone stood with surprised faces. They found the gate. Lu Ming, Ziyu, Chang Liang ran with all their might. It was necessary to hurry because the mine was about to collapse, while it was also necessary to beware of stones falling from above. Chang Liang decided to express all his lack of weight. He had a premonition that the place would collapse. He blamed Lu Ming for everything. He was counting because he was trying to steal the stones. Lu Ming immediately made it clear to him that he had nothing to do with it, because he didn't even use a pickaxe. Chang Liang didn't care. He wanted to tell Miss and everything when they met, but Lu Ming preferred to get out of there alive first. The hero thought that stealing energy stones was not an easy offense. Besides, Lu Ming was not completely sure whether Ziyu had deleted the video from his camera. He thought Ziyu was completely unpredictable. Lu Ming hoped that Ziyu would not blackmail him at the most inopportune moment. At this time, the boss, looking at the phone, decided that it was time to pay for the work. He wanted to discuss how they would share the found treasures. The girl with pink hair was indignant. The workers explained that earlier they had not said that they were going to dig up treasures. Now they need to discuss this point. They can all be killed if the two brothers find out. The girl and the guy made it clear that there was no treasure there. What was inside would be useless to them. The boss said that the gate hadn't opened until now. How would they know what was there? In any case, the boss said that they couldn't ignore their question. Otherwise, they would have to publish the news that treasures were being dug here. He believed that many people would be interested in this. The girl with pink hair sighed and told the workers to do whatever they wanted. The boss was surprised. The man said that he could really do anything. The guy who was with her asked if it was true that she would let him do it. In an instant, the girl stops and then orders her companion to kill all the workers, one by one. Her partner, a little wrinkled, understood the hint of the girl and said that it was a great idea. The guy stretched out his hand over the worker. The man started shouting that there were much more workers, and they clearly outnumbered him. The partner of the girl with pink hair grabbed one of the workers by the head and began to squeeze her gradually. He lifted it in the air. The phone fell out of his hands. The worker has already asked for forgiveness. He promised that he would do nothing. At one point, the helmet on his head burst. The partner began to be sarcastic because they only told him that there were much more of them. His eyes were glowing pink. While the partner was dealing with the workers, the girl stood near the gate and, passing over the surface of the gate, did some kind of enchantment. Of course, she realized that this was not enough because these gates are not so easy to open. Therefore, she decided to try to do the enchantment a few more times. Looking straight at the gate, she thought for a very long time about how to open it. She did not pay attention to the workers, whom her partner scattered in all directions. Suddenly, one person flew straight into the stone wall next to the gate, which attracted the girl's attention. There was not a single worthy opponent for a partner in the mines. All these guys were weaklings, so it's no wonder they can only dig here. He could easily tear someone's head off, but suddenly the man notices Zhang Xiaoping hiding behind a stone. The young man waved his hand in horror and greeted the furious lump in the form of a pink-haired girl's partner. Zhang Xiaoping was lying on the floor and asked not to kill him. It turned out that the girl with pink hair and that guy were relatives. He called his sister and said that some fat kid showed up here, who said he was a student. My brother didn't know what to do with him. My sister didn't care. The gate had some kind of protective barrier. She hadn't seen it before, so it would take some time to break it down. Before starting this business, the sister ordered her brother to get rid of the working bodies. She asked him to try to disguise the bodies so that everything looked like death from collapse, so as not to have problems in the future. As for Zhang Xiaoping, she ordered him to be buried with the others. The brother grabbed Zhang Xiaoping's leg and dragged him away. Zhang Xiaoping shouted that he was an illusionist and knew what features were imposed on the gate. He saw them once in an ancient book called The Soaring Gates of Paradise. This enchantment is called Heyazi Vijay. Zhang Xiaoping knew how to break the gate. The brother and sister thought about it. Heyazi Vijay meant doing everything for yourself. Most enchantments have passwords, keys, calculations, and so on, but the enchantments on these gates were completely different. The master who created this enchantment was a genius, and an ordinary person cannot break this enchantment. She asked Zhang Xiaoping to tell her how they could be broken. If Zhang Xiaoping could open this gate for her, she would not only spare his life, but also offer a deal. Outside the gate, with the exception of one thing, Zhang Xiaoping would be able to take whatever he wanted, or just ask for money. Zhang Xiaoping wanted to believe that they would not deceive him. The brother said his sister wasn't lying. Zhang Xiaoping agreed to tell the secret. A strong attack was needed to break this spell. People who have tried to dispel these charms before have tried various methods. And in the end, because of endless failures, they got angry and struck hard at the gate, after which the spell was dispelled. Brother Fu was obviously happy. Strong attacks were in his line. He considered it his specialty. He clenched his fists so tightly that the veins stood out on his hands. With all his might, he swung and ran towards the gate, hitting them with all his might. It didn't work. Brother Fu thought Zhang Xiaoping was talking nonsense. Zhang Xiaoping was trying to prove that everything he said was the pure truth. He began to come up with nuances I find in order to stall for time and stay alive. He believed that such a powerful spell required several people to work together. Such a musical instrument, here it was necessary to observe a sense of rhythm. Zhang Xiaoping told everyone that he had exactly what he had, so he asked his brother and sister to rely on him. Zhang Xiaoping tried to brush it off and quickly escape. He said that there were his classmates nearby, and together they would cope much better. Brother Fu realized that the boy was stalling for time, so he just offered to finish him off already. Brother Fu's sister has already heard that the master once said that such a book exists. She said she would believe Zhang Xiaoping, but if he deceived her, he would lose his life first, and then his friends. Zhang Xiaoping almost swore allegiance. When he turned around, he realized how many lies he had told. He believed that as soon as he met his friends, he would be safe. Although they are not particularly strong, but Miss On could protect. Even though she looks quite weak from the outside, she was a 3-star elementalist. Even if Miss On loses, she can buy time to notify the rescuers outside. When the situation becomes unprofitable for the enemies, they will immediately disappear. Zhang Xiaoping considered himself smart, and if you go to bed with a dog, you will wake up with fleas in the morning. Recently he was with Brother Lu, and during this time he has become wiser. The brother and sister started getting rid of the bodies. Lu Ming, Ziyu and Chang Liang reached the guys. Chang Liang wanted to complain to Miss and faster, but when he saw the problem of the whole situation, he was silent. The only way out was blocked, and no one understood what was going on. The girl, who not so long ago helped the main character with 2 magic crystals, involuntarily looked into the beeping phone. Suddenly she turned to Miss On and said that she still couldn't get a signal, and there was no way to contact anyone outside at all. Someone suggested that the signal is completely blocked. Miss On tried to calm everyone down and said that there should be people outside who know about what happened, so they should have already sent for help. Fortunately, there were no casualties and those present have a lot of supplies. Ziyu said that they would hope that nothing bad would happen. Chang Liang tried to shut up his friend, calling him a talker. Ziyu sighed, said okay and started drinking water from the bottle. The protagonist watched Ziyu's actions warily. He thought that the good thing had become bad, and the bad thing had become good. He assumed that these two would not report him anywhere. However, the hero did not understand why he was constantly experiencing a sense of anxiety and a feeling that he had missed something. Suddenly a realization came to him. There, deep in the cave, his friend remained. He realized that he wasn't here and he wasn't with him either. Suddenly, the hero saw Zhang Xiaoping and a huge young man with a pink-haired girl approaching. Overjoyed, the hero called Zhang Xiaoping and said that he was thinking about him at that moment. Lu Ming grabbed the sluggish Zhang Xiaoping and said that he thought that he had already died, but he was still alive. Xiaoping asked Brother Lu not to swear like that. The hero asked his friend to tell him what he had experienced with his chubby face, but Zhang Xiaoping, feeling his brother and sister from behind, decided to leave Lu Ming and reported that he had found 2 miners in a secret world. After hearing about the secret world, other students began to gather around Zhang Xiaoping and ask him about the secret world. They wanted to find out where the secret world is, but Zhang Xiaoping raised his hands and asked others to moderate their ardor, because he wants to tell about what he saw. Everyone present immediately turned their attention, but only Lu Ming thought about the secret world. He recalled the memories of his youth, where the secret world is described as a legendary place. The so-called secret world was an ancient tomb in another world. It looked like a cave prepared by powerful monks for cultivation. These caves have been developing over the years. They have been powered by energy and, finally, have been preserved intact. The secret world is a real treasure cave. Although most of the secret worlds found were full of charms and traps, but in order to get the treasures and secrets left by their predecessors, travelers pass all the tests. Every time a secret world is created, it creates a huge sensation and drives countless practitioners crazy. Lu Ming felt that Zhang Xiaoping must be very happy to have found the secret world. However, his expression proves otherwise. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoping asked everyone present to help him discover the secret world. Exhaling, Zhang Xiaoping thought that he did not expect that the exit would be blocked, so he is in huge trouble. He understands that he needs to come up with something. Suddenly he hears as if someone is sniffing. turning his head, Zhang Xiaoping sees his friend Lu Ming sniffing at his brother and sister. A pink-haired girl asks the hero what he is doing, to which the young man replies that it's nothing. He has a special ability to enhance perception, and he also has a good nose. Zhang Xiaoping started biting his nails. Lu Ming tells the pink-haired girl that he feels a faint scent of flowers and a little cinnamon on her, but in addition to this he smells blood. Everyone paid attention to the sister and brother at once when they heard about the smell of blood on the girl's body. The miners wondered why the girl smelled of blood, as well as how Lu Ming smelled it. Apparently, he has a dog's nose. Another man said that there was nothing surprising in the smell of blood, because the miners with whom they were together were crushed to death. However, another man noticed that there was no blood on the girl herself. Zhang Xiaoping looked at brother Lu and thought that he wanted to be killed on the spot. Someone even dared to suggest that everything looks suspicious, since 2 workers were killed, but the only brother and sister are in perfect order. Lu Ming does not pay attention to the girl's shaking fist and asks her, calling her a beauty, to explain why she smells of blood. Suddenly he looks at her face and sees an unbearable thirst for murder that comes straight from her eyes. Suddenly, the girl makes a bow, which surprises Lu Ming. He apologizes to everyone present, saying that she has a period of women's days. After a short silence, one of the miners shouts at Lu Ming that he has deceived everyone with his improved perception. They wasted their time on a fraudster. They are all going to get ready to go to work, because they need to dig up as much as possible. Meanwhile, Miss On asks the students not to take any action, because it's too early to know what dangers may be inside. She suggests waiting for help to come. Someone shouts that when help comes, the secret world will be divided between the leaders, so ordinary people will not get anything. They decide to find the secret world as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Ziyu turns to Lu Ming, asking him about strengthening feelings, because he had never heard of something like this before. Lu Ming laughs in response. In fact, he had never heard of this enhancement of feelings either. He just made it all up to annoy the pink-haired girl and see what the problem was. Ziyu is happy for the hero and wonders if he has found out what the problem is. Lu Ming replies that he is not sure yet, but he has a feeling that everything is not so simple, and the sister and brother must be hiding something. He asks Ziyu what he thinks about them. The young man answers, the sharp instincts of an archer tell him something, namely, that now is the time to hurry to keep up with the pack. Finally, everyone gets to the enchanted gate. No one can believe that they have found the entrance to the secret world. One of the young men says that he sees something like this for the first time. They shout after him that it's normal when you see this for the first time. Everyone wants to eagerly open these gates. One of the young men says that it seems to him that the gate is sealed, and in order to open it, an attack is needed, so they need to attack. Suddenly Zhang Xiaoping asks everyone, calling them gentlemen, to calm down and follow the simple movements of his hands to get into the rhythm and start a rhythmic attack. Then the gates will be opened with a beautiful melody. Everyone stared intently at how Zhang Xiaoping begins to sing the bass notes, and at the same time dance with his eyes closed. Opening his eyes, he shouts for everyone to get ready to launch the most powerful attack to open these gates to untold treasures to the best of the best. Everyone present begins to glow with red eyes. They all shout together, and someone even decides to use lightning. This is followed by 5 lashes, a water ball, a stone blow, an air wave, and so on. From the mixing of various magical abilities, a huge explosion thundered, and then Zhang Xiaoping realized that the plan had failed, so he needed to come up with something else to stay alive. He tearfully begs brother Lu Ming to help him not to die. After some time, people have completely run out of strength. This was followed by a shout for everyone to stop, because from such a blow the gate should have opened. But as it turned out, the gate remained completely intact. Someone even suggested that the rhythm was uncertain and because of this they did not open. Immediately, everyone started looking for someone who didn't follow the rhythm. Everyone considered it a waste of time, and someone completely spent all their strength. One man turned to Zhang Xiaoping and asked what to do now. Zhang Xiaoping stood with a stony expression. He didn't know what to say and just asked everyone to calm down, saying that it was normal that the gates didn't open the first time. He asks everyone to listen to him. Immediately, he got down on his knees and shouted that he had lied to everyone. He apologizes and says that he has absolutely no idea how to open this gate. Everyone started calling Zhang Xiaoping names, because how dare he lie to his face. Zhang Xiaoping put his hands in front of him and asked to listen. He didn't really want to lie to anyone, but people did not listen to him to the end and already attacked the poor young man, because of him others lost their strength just like that. Brother Fu stood aside and turned to his sister, because he was right that Zhang Xiaoping was leading by the nose and lying. He asked the girl about further actions. His sister said that she would find a way to open this gate, and in the meantime, his brother could deal with everyone present. However, she asked not to touch the young man named Ming. She said that she needed the young man alive, so she asked him to take him home after his brother finished his business with others. Brother Fu was very surprised. Brother Fu asked if she really liked Ming, but the girl firmly said that it wasn't like that at all. She wants to cut off his limbs. Watching Ming inspect the gate, the girl said to herself that she would gouge out his eyes, pull out his tongue, and then put him in a vase and watch him. Brother Fu was shocked by this. While Ming was inspecting the gate, Ziyu came up to him. The young man asked if there was a way to open them, to which Ming replied that it was a couple of trifles for him. He also said that the seal of this gate may seem complicated to him, but as it seems to Ming, it is as simple and understandable as mathematics. The hero, having put his hand to the gate, thought to himself that everything has its own rules, and as long as these rules are known, anyone will be able to find the answer. After touching the gate, he realizes that he needs to allow the energy of the body to enter the seal first, and then he needs to follow the path of the seal to figure out its structure. He understands that the spell in front of him is not a spell, but most likely some kind of data, and this data, in turn, is a simple task for him, an experienced programmer. He finally found the answer. At one point, Ziyu, turning his head in different directions, realizes that Ming disappeared very suddenly. After catching his breath, the hero, who is in an unknown place, decides to look around. He doesn't understand what happened and where he is. He reflects on the fact that the so-called enchantment is just a portal, and having solved the puzzle, Ming started the mechanism and was teleported to the secret world. If that's really the case, then he's here alone right now. Suddenly he realizes that all the treasures in the secret zone belong only to him. It also comes to the realization that he is now a damn rich young man. He starts dancing with joy, saying that it is the first month of the lunar year and his first day in the new year. Without noticing what is happening, he wanders into a real maze. Walking through the maze, he notices that there are high walls everywhere. He doesn't understand how the secret world can be so much like a maze. At one point, he stumbles and, raising his head, finds a real treasure chest. Not trusting his eyes, he rushes straight to him. Joyfully opening it, the hero discovers that the chest is absolutely empty, and only a sheet of paper lies at the bottom. There was a congratulation on the sheet, as well as a task for which Ming had to find a way out of the maze. There was also a message that there were no supplies and food in the maze, so you need to find a way out for the rest of your life. The hero was very upset, because this place is not a secret world, but just an illusion. He did not expect that everything would turn out this way, and the entrance to the charm gate can only be opened by finding a way out of the maze. The hero realized that everything is not so simple and he made a mistake. Holding his chin, he began to think that the maze was endless. Realizing what was happening, he stared straight at the piece of paper. An endless maze exists only in computer games and does not exist in reality, but in this world it can be built with the help of illusions. Theoretically, it is possible to solve an infinite maze by focusing on one point. That is, the search area is constantly expanding, so that its circle continues to grow, and eventually a way out will be found. The time to search for an exit depends on how far you are from the central point, but if the central point is far from the exit, then the search can be endless. The hero realized that with such an outcome, all this would be the end of his life. Suddenly he was violently sick and a black cat came out of his mouth. He asked if his previous injury was okay, because now he looks stronger than last time. Suddenly, he notices an original card in his teeth. Suddenly the cat takes off. The hero does not understand what is happening and why the cat leaves him in trouble. Running through the maze right behind the cat, the hero shouts that he can't take his original card, because a whole life depends on it. Meanwhile, the pink-haired girl came to the gate. She thinks that there is a trap hidden in the gate and, respecting the identity of the creator, she did not dare to enter without a plan. But Ming suddenly disappeared. She assumed that the hero had set off a trap. She says that the so-called attack of the fat man was originally the most successful way to overcome the barrier, but it is obvious that the strength of these students is enough. After all, the person who created this gate in the world beyond it is a legend. She does not understand what to do and whether it is worth risking in going into an unknown trap. Suddenly the gate begins to glow. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoping is shouting to everyone that he was forced to lie to them all and all their energy was wasted. Zhang Xiaoping was about to tell who made him lie to everyone, but suddenly a huge shadow belonging to Brother Fu hung over him, when suddenly someone pointed a finger at the gate and said that it was opening. Suddenly, everyone turned towards the gate, and it really opened. All the miners present prepared to run for the start command. In an instant, they all ran towards the open gate. The pink-haired girl, not paying attention to the others, was thinking about why the gate opened so suddenly. She even assumed that Lu Ming had done everything. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lu Ming was reaching out with plump lips to his black cat, saying what a lovely and cute kitten he was. On his knees, he tells him that he thought that the cat would leave him, but it all turned out to be a big misunderstanding. Then he asks his companion about how he found out that the exit is here, and also asks if he has been here already. The hero also asks the cat to give him the card. On his knees, he says that later he can buy a cat a fish, and there are also all kinds of canned food, catnip. But, in any case, he will buy him anything he wants. When the hero offered the cat to buy a little kitty so that she would always be with him, the cat got angry and hit the hero in the face with his tail. After entering the gate, the miners were surprised that the secret world is very dark. They can't see anything. They were also surprised by its size and why it is so small. Someone even suggested that this is a small secret room and there can be nothing here. Going a little further into the room, one of the young men found an eye on one of the pillars, around which an emerald flame is burning. In an instant, eyes lit up on all such pillars. Those present were scared and did not understand what was happening. They were suddenly blinded by the bright light of lanterns. Suddenly one of those present saw in the back of the room a huge paw of some lizard. This paw held an unusual object with a crystal crescent. An unusual object turned out to be a map. After examining it, the guys realized that it was very unusual. Someone suggested that there should be a reverse side on this card. Looking at it closer, the young men realized that they had never seen such a pattern, and its color and texture are very unusual. Someone suggested that this is a legendary card and it should bring a lot of money. Rallying together, the guys wanted to quickly take it and sell it as soon as they got out of here, and then divide the money equally. This compensation is enough for an internship in the mine. Suddenly, Brother Fu came up behind them. He grabbed one of the young men by the head and knocked him to the ground, saying that he had no right to touch this thing. Everyone present was in shock and did not understand what was happening. The young man introduced himself to Fu Hongming and claimed to be a 3-star energy warrior. He also stated that this card belongs to him and if someone wants to live, they must leave this room immediately. Everyone was terribly surprised to meet a 3-star warrior. Someone from the crowd said that everyone here is just 1-star cultivators. Even if Ning Yu and Chang Liang are on the same star, it's only 1 star. The difference between 1 star and 3 stars is very simple. Fu Hongming is like a wolf among sheep. However, after exchanging glances with others, the young man shouted that there was a kind of power called teamwork. He also shouts that a group of 1 star is the brightest star in the night sky. Fu Hongming looked in surprise at how the young man ran out of the crowd with such words, thinking that he would be supported, but everyone remained standing aside. He, not understanding, shouted to his comrades not to stand aside, because there are so many of them. The other students said they were 2 stars behind Fu Hongming, so it was impossible to beat him. The young man pointed his finger at Fu Hongming and shouted that he could be fake, because how could a miner become a 3-star warrior? Suddenly Miss On came into the room and said that these two were not miners at all and they had come here for this particular map. Everyone present immediately ran to Miss N. Miss N is a real 3-star elementalist. They started complaining to the teacher that Fu Hongming was hurting them. Miss On straightened her arm and ordered all the students to stand behind her. Fu Hongming put his hand on his face and said that he was very inattentive and did not notice the 3-star elementalist. Miss On said she found miners who appeared to have been killed in an accident, but almost all of them had a head wound. She asked Fu Hongming if it was related to him. Taking off her glasses, the girl said that specialized inspectors should deal with such things, so it's not in her competence, but Fu Hongming kidnapped and intimidated her students. Miss On, angry, said she would not forgive such behavior. Her eyes lit up with a white light, and a blue pattern appeared on her face. Fu Hongming, opening his hands, said that he would like Miss On to open the gate first. He would take the card, and then just leave, but since she stands in his way, he is forced to attack. Jumping on Miss On, the girl was very surprised, but was able to dodge. Crossing her arms over her chest, she began to prepare an attack. After accumulating energy, Miss On used a wind shot, hitting Fu Hongming directly. The students watching what was happening said that Miss On was simply amazing. They couldn't believe that this strong person was really Miss On, who is usually just a kind woman. The girl had already started to breathe heavily, but suddenly, amid the smoke, she saw Fu Hongming unharmed. The man praised her momentum and strength. However, his 3 stars and Miss On's 3 stars are completely different. while under the protection of a certain barrier field. He proudly said that he was a 3-star warrior who had fought on the battlefield thousands of times, and not just a teacher at the university. Seeing the energy armor covering Fu Hongming's entire body, Miss On fell into a real horror. She didn't understand how he was able to master the energy armor. In fact, an ordinary energy warrior can only combine energy in a local area to form a protective energy shield. Energy armor, in turn, is an improved version of the basic concentration ability, which can only be improved after application. The energy armor covers the entire body completely for full protection, so it's very difficult to deal real damage without a powerful one-point attack. But Miss On's attack was of a different type, so things are very bad. The girl thought that although there were people among the students with a single-point attacking ability like Ziyu, but this would definitely not be enough to damage Fu Hongming's armor. The girl was trying to come up with a plan to protect her students, when suddenly Fu Hongming's huge hands took her by the head. The man lifted Miss On right off the ground. He began to press on her face and laughing loudly at the same time. Fu Hongming said that on the battlefield, your life can change very quickly, so here you either fight or die. He started shouting that he would tear off Miss On's head. All the students watched in horror. Suddenly, a scream was heard somewhere from the side. Chang Liang said that when he first started going to school, everyone laughed at him because of his appearance. He was depressed, but only Miss An patted him on the head and told him not to think about the opinions of others. He continued, putting his hand on his hair. Miss An said that if Chang Liang is strong enough, then no one else will dare to laugh at him. But on the contrary, they will respect and appreciate friendship with him. Pulling off his wig, he declared that these words belonged to Miss On. It was she who allowed him to continue doing himself, so he became one of the best people in the group. Throwing the wig on the ground, he declares that Fu Hongming has no right to treat his Miss An in front of him like that. Showing his excellent bald head, Chang Liang shouted for Fu Hongming to die. The rest of the guys started running away because Chang Liang had gone crazy. Everyone closed their eyes at once. Zhang Xiaoping asked Ziyu what had happened. He put on his glasses and asked the young man to close his eyes faster. Suddenly, Chang Liang's eyes and mouth began to glow brightly. Ziyu remembered that when Chang Liang is very angry, he can rage and fall into unconsciousness, so he can do something terrible that he can't even control. Ziyu, looking at his classmate with glasses, said that such a phenomenon is a genetic inheritance of the element of light, which belongs to his family. The young man remembered that Chang Liang had sent the master to the hospital with such force. In an instant, after shouting something about a special effect, everything around Chang Liang began to glow with a snow-white light. After finishing his reception, Chang Liang fell down without being able to move. Everyone was standing around with their eyes closed. No one dared to open them, so everyone wondered if he had finished or not yet. Ziyu took off his glasses and, looking around, realized that Chang Liang's technique is incredibly strong. But it has a fatal flaw, because if you just close your eyes, there will be no damage. So Ziyu is the first in the group, and Chang Liang is the second. Looking at Fu Hongming, Ziyu was surprised that he did not understand this move, so while Chang Liang attacked Fu Hongming, he did not close his eyes. However, Fu Hongming suddenly opened his eyes, which surprised Ziyu because it seems that Chang Liang's technique did not work. Suddenly, Fu Hongming started coughing up blood and shouted what kind of trick it was that actually penetrated through his armor and hit him directly. He realized that he was able to close half of his organs with energy in time. Otherwise, his brain and all his internal organs would have received great damage. At that moment, Ziyu grabbed his single arrow and pulled the string, pointing it straight at Ziyu. He thought that he had suffered an internal injury, which caused the protection of the energy armor to weaken. In this situation, the best time to shoot. He shoots an arrow straight into the armor gap. Suddenly, Ziyu is overtaken by past memories. He remembered how his grandfather used to say that in a battle, it's not the enemy that matters, but you yourself. However, little Ziyu could not understand the meaning of these words. Grandfather says that an example is a lake in which everything is reflected as in a mirror. When faced with a strong opponent, victory or defeat, life or death, it's all a matter of a moment. However, in addition to good skills, it is also necessary to have a calm mind. It is a calm mind that can not only afford to wait calmly, but you can also put your whole body into action in an instant. When this very moment comes, then one step and you can become a winner. Little Ziyu told Grandpa that he didn't understand anything anyway. However, the elderly man replied that he would understand when the present time came. Remembering this, Ziyu thought that the bow and arrow were the most valuable things that his grandfather had left him. Although there is only one arrow, she has two extremely special abilities. The first ability is that the arrow is very expensive. Suddenly an arrow pierced Fu Hongming's armor. However, he said that he was amazed at the well-coordinated work of the children. But on the battlefield he received many such wounds that he no longer feels them. Suddenly, the arrow began to freeze Fu Hongming's entire body, and soon his entire arm was covered with a block of ice. When Ziyu snapped his fingers, the hand that was covered with a block of ice cracked and split into pieces. Everyone was amazed at what was happening. One of the students said that the hand froze and broke. He was amazed at how strong Changliang and Ziyu were, because they were able to defeat a 3-star warrior. The armless Fu Hongming began to scream heart-rendingly, calling everyone bad kids. Zhang Xiaoping shouted at Ziyu to shoot at the enemy again. But the young man said that he could not do more because the limit for a shot is once a day. Meanwhile, Fu Hongming, who was getting hot, was rushing straight at the group of students. He told himself that he was a 3-star warrior who had been in many battles, so he could not lose to the kids. Everyone stood in shock and watched the monster rushing at them. They didn't understand how he could still move without an arm. "We need to run away soon." Suddenly someone shouted for all outsiders to get out of the place because he wanted to do something. That someone turned out to be Lu Ming. He summoned a herd of thunderous bulls that swept straight towards the opponent. Everyone present somehow managed to dodge away from the rushing herd. The bulls directly demolished Fu Hongming, leaving behind only a destroyed field. Everyone stared in shock at the smoke and Fu Hongming's protruding leg. They also didn't understand how Lu Ming was able to defeat a 3-star warrior. Everyone ran up to Lu Ming and started praising him, calling him incredible. They asked him about the map of the 7 bulls, because none of them had ever seen one before. After putting up a whole bunch of these cards in his hands, Lu Ming said that it was an improved version of the Wild Dash that he had developed. He also said that if someone wants to buy now, then when buying 2 cards, the third one will be a gift. While Lu Ming was selling his cards, Ziyu picked up an unknown card, because of which Fu Hongming began to blow everyone to smithereens. Suddenly, a pink-haired girl approached him from behind. He quickly shouted Lu Ming's name and threw him a card. At that moment, the pink-haired girl hit him from the side with her foot, from which he flew away several meters. The card fell right into the hands of the main character. The students started saying that this woman is an accomplice of Fu Hongming. The girl knocked Ziyu down with one punch, and now she looks even more intimidating. Someone said not to be afraid, because Lu Ming has a backpack full of cards. The protagonist turned to Zhang Xiaoping and asked him about the card in his hands. The young man replied that this map was the only treasure of this secret room and that they were digging here under the guise of miners for the sake of this map. After looking at it, the hero realized that the card looks very unusual, and the pattern on the back looks complicated. After looking at the map and then at the situation, Lu Ming told his friend that he would sort it all out. Poet Zhang Xiaoping should get the wounded out of here, and then come back for him. Suddenly, the pink-haired girl started running straight at Lu Ming, but he put his hand in front of her and asked her to wait. He put his cards in front of her and said that card masters have a very simple way of fighting. He said that the essence of the fight is to use a bunch of cards. First you need to exhaust and then defeat the enemy. However, they can avoid it. He went on to say that they had just seen the power of his Thunder Bull card. He also warned that he has a whole backpack of such cards. However, he is a businessman, and businessmen, of course, care about peace and prosperity, so they try to solve problems peacefully if possible. The girl silently watched and listened to Lu Ming. He offered a deal. He wants to take all his classmates and leave here alive, and in return he will give the girl this card. The girl looked at the hero, and then leaned her hand on her hip and agreed to the deal, calling the hero smart. Lu Ming was able to bring his maximum to 300 points to use the card. But he doesn't have a single card to replenish energy, so he won't even be able to use the Wild Dash card without energy. Throwing the card directly to the girl, he ran in the other direction and shouted to all the students to run right after him and very quickly. Zhang Xiaoping, who was running after him, could not believe that Lu Ming would give up the card, but the hero asked him to talk less and run. The pink-haired girl stood silently and looked at the card with the thunderous bull, squeezing it into a piece. She shouted the name of the main character. Lu Ming, running away, thought that he had run away fraudulently, so she would definitely come after him, so she would not harm his classmates. He thought that the terrain in the mine is very difficult, so he needs to think about where to hide. He smiled maliciously, because Zhao Xiaoping and others think that he threw a card to a pink-haired girl. not knowing that he took it for himself. Suddenly, running up to the gate, Lu Ming was surprised because they had closed. At this moment, Zhao Xiaoping runs up to the hero and says that the girl is running after them and she has a serious intention to kill. The students started shouting at Lu Ming to use his cards because he has a lot of them. They asked the hero to hurry up, but he just stood there and was silent. The students strongly supported Lu Ming, calling him Mr. Lu Ming had to apologize to them because he can no longer use the Thunder Bull's cards. The main character admitted that he had run out of energy and did not take energy cards with him. Everyone fell into complete horror because the creator of the cards does not have energy cards. Listening to the humiliating exclamations of the guys that it was necessary to distribute energy cards to him, the hero remembered about the cat and smiled maliciously. He turned to the cat, calling him a brother. Lu Ming begged him for help because the life of his bearer was at stake. The black cat was in his starry world at that time and perfectly heard the pleas for help from Lu Ming. However, instead of helping, he did not react in any way. At that moment, Lu Ming was shouted, and he looked at the top, from where the pink-haired girl was rushing. It came to a crashing stop right in front of him. Lu Ming was surprised by the powerful surge of energy. He was surprised, because energy seemed to come out of her, and the air around her shrinks and takes shape. Lu Ming realized that she was very dangerous. The girl called the hero very arrogant, because how dare he deceive her again and again. She said she would let him silently watch his classmates die right in front of his eyes. Zhang Xiaoping looked at his friend and asked what the relationship between brother Lu and this girl was. Lu Ming said that he has no relationship with her. Then Zhang Xiaoping asked him to do something, but the hero didn't know what. Pursing his lips, Zhang Xiaoping, dropping a huge volume of tears, threw the hero a card. It was a charge card with as many as 3 stars. Lu Ming asked Zhang Xiaoping why he hadn't told about her earlier. In tears, the young man said that he thought that everything would be fine, because this card costs a lot of money. The young man kept crying and saying that it took him years to charge it, so Lu Ming would have to compensate for its costs. Lu Ming told his friend not to worry and activated the charge card. The charge card is a special kind of energy card. The cards have 3 stars and can be found in the store. The card itself does not contain energy and requires constant recharging from the card holder. However, ordinary practitioners rarely charge their cards themselves due to the huge losses they incur during regular training. However, those at the bottom of the hierarchy continue to charge their cards with energy and then sell them on the market. To put it simply, these are disposable batteries for the cultivator, which is an incredibly valuable treasure. After activating the card, Lu Ming began to overflow with energy. He compared this tide to a river flowing into a pour, or vice versa if the sea were flowing into a river, as well as with huge waves. Taking a whole deck of Thunderous Bull cards, the hero, one by one, began to activate the cards in order, until a whole army of these very bulls appeared. The pink-haired girl was carried away by a herd of bulls, who ran back into the hall, from where they recently took an unusual card. The bulls began to destroy everything, pillars, objects, the floor. By doing so, they created huge cracks in the structure, which contributed to the destruction of the room. Lu Ming shouted to everyone to get out of the way, and with the help of the map he would open the gate. Zhang Xiaoping said that it was not Lu Ming who would break through the gates, but the bulls. He told his friend to be quiet and not to interfere. Zhang Xiaoping said that as long as brother Lu is around, he cannot think in problems. In an instant, the gate was breached by a herd of bulls, and everyone rushed out of the room. At the moment of escape, Lu Ming looked back and saw how huge rocks blocked the exit. He thought about the girl and that because of the blocked exit, she was now buried alive there. But if she had stayed alive, it would have been even worse. Closing his eyes, he thought that dying this way at such a young age was certainly not the best choice. But he remembered that the card was buried, so he rushed to run. At that moment, the girl with pink hair was covered in abrasions. Somehow making her way to the exit, she was hit from above by a fallen stone. Somehow she reached her hand to the backpack from where she took out an unknown object. It was a map projection. She activated the transition card. The countdown started, but suddenly a huge stone began to fall from above. After a while, the guys almost got to the excavation site when suddenly they saw the light. They met people who were fully dressed in a suit. As it turned out, it was a rescue team. The joyful students rushed straight to them. As it turned out, they opened the passage. Everyone cooperatively asked the medics to put the wounded on stretchers. At this time, a ray was formed in the middle of some forest and a girl with pink hair appeared right in this ray. She told herself that it was very good to have a transition card in stock, because otherwise she would have died. Taking off her mask, the girl spoke Lu Ming's name and promised him that she would definitely find him and kill him. The event takes place in the recreation hall of the Department of Mines Management. Lu Ming approaches Zhang Xiaoping, who was sitting there, and tells Tom that he almost died, but for some reason he is still sad. The young man replied so that the hero would not laugh at him. Lu Ming guessed that his friend was still worried about that charge card. He says he knows that there was energy there that he had been accumulating for years through training, and then he wanted to sell it. The young man replies that by selling the card, he wanted to save up some money to finally buy a house for himself. These words surprised Lu Ming very much. Raising his head, Zhang Xiaoping said that these words were just plans for the future. Lu Ming didn't know that the financial problems of young men in this world are so complicated. The hero handed a pink bundle to a friend and said that it was for him. Zhang Xiaoping asked what the piece of paper was. The young man's eyes suddenly widened. There was a number. After the collapse of the mine, the internship was over. The next day, the students were evacuated from the mine by bus. To calm the broken hearts of the students, the school compensated with money. According to Lu Ming's calculations, he could skip classes for a long time. The school also presented special awards to Lu Ming, Zhang Xiaoping, Xie Yu and Chang Liang for their bravery in the mine. As a reward, the hero received some kind of certificate. He was very angry because the schools, surprisingly, turned out to be very stingy. He threw away the gift with the words that he did not want to see him anymore. He lay down on the bed and thought that when he was engaged in projects, from requirements analysis to overhead design, each module and each function had to be written many times for reports. However, it helped him develop excellent analysis and summarizing skills. Each Thunderous Bull card has an ultra-high level of skill. Having made hundreds of such cards, the hero began to draw basic patterns very well, and the practical experience in creating these cards became enormous. He has decided that he is going to create more new decks in the coming days. He was constantly improving energy recovery rate, and transportation speed. In the dead of night, someone called Lu Ming on the phone. He asked in a sleepy voice what was needed from him late at night. A voice was heard on the other side of the phone. Zhang Xiaoping said it was only noon. Zhang Xiaoping calls to ask how the young man will use the certificate they received as a reward from the school. Lu Ming asks in a sleepy voice if this certificate can be used. Zhang Xiaoping says that it can be exchanged for professional training or even for a referral from the director. Lu Ming was surprised by the value of this piece of paper and quickly ran to get it out of the trash. Looking at the certificate, Lu Ming thought that it looked like he had not completely inherited some of his personal skills and someday he would have to conduct a thorough investigation on himself. Then the hero switched to Zhang Xiaoping and asked about the call, because he probably didn't call him to ask what he was going to do with the certificate. Zhang Xiaoping told Lu Ming the bad news that yesterday the school sent a group to the mine to search for the missing students. Lu Ming wondered, because yesterday everyone seemed to have arrived in integrity. Zhang Xiaoping called the hero stupid, because all the students are alive, and the school sent a rescue team to the mines from where the map disappeared. Apparently, the real purpose of the school is this map. Zhang Xiaoping sighed and said that they would definitely find that card and they had lost 100 million. Lu Ming was shaking all over and his eyes lit up with bright lights. He wondered if that card was really worth 100 million. Zhang Xiaoping also said that he had heard from classmates that the map was a legacy. Lu Ming remembered that this card was in his bag. While he was looking for her, Zhang Xiaoping decided to share the good news that he was going on a date with Sinner today. In response, Lu Ming hung up, and Zhang Xiaoping started shouting at him, because he wanted to ask for advice on what to do on the first date. Meanwhile, the young man found that unusual card in his bag. He looked at her, and drooled from his mouth at the thought that she was worth 100 million. Lu Ming was sitting at his computer and trying to find information about this map on the internet. He was typing a query in the browser about a map with a moon pattern. Naturally, there was a lot of information about this card on the internet. The map is called the Shadow Moon Map. There are 7 such cards in total, and the hero has one of them. In the first academy, where the main character's sister studies, there is a student with 5 stars, Sword Master Wu Hongfei. He received the first Shadow Moon card and created his companion card. Trying to find out more, the hero finds his card. He learns that this card is from the Heritage set, so it is very valuable. If we interpret the heritage map, then it is used to pass on to students. This is usually the greatest legacy that great masters who have left this world leave to their descendants. The great master invests his vast experience and his life's work and other things, and then instructs the card manufacturer to make an unusual card. This map contains a lot of knowledge of our predecessors. Having inherited such a card, a person will be able to slowly learn, understand it, until he grows into a real master. If we interpret the concept of a set map, then this is a technique for creating maps, which is very scary and extremely complex. In order to divide the strip into parts, it is also necessary to make sure that the separated strips form a single whole, and will not collapse as a result of energy instability. Then these patterns are enclosed in separate cards and one technique is added. The maps that are created by this technology are extremely valuable. Looking at his card, the young man realizes that it was not surprising that his brother and sister wanted to get this card so much, because this thing has a value of 100 million. Here the hero realizes that it is very dangerous and difficult to keep it with him, because people will find out that he has it, so he can die at any moment. He should have 7 cards from this set, but even one can cause huge battles. If the hero managed to get all 7 cards, it would be a cataclysm. Lu Ming realizes that he does not have the strength to fight for the rest of the cards right now, and judging by the information from the internet, he does not need the Sword Master's legacy card at all. Walking around the room, the hero wonders what to do with this card. If he wants to sell it, then as soon as they find out about it, they will immediately kill him, so he does not have enough strength to sell it. Suddenly, the hero remembers about the sword cultivators. He understands that he cannot sell the card, but he can give it to someone who can. At best, it will be a sister who also practices the sword. According to Little Lu's memories, Mina, his sister, is a real demon, but she is incredibly talented and continues to defeat enemies very quickly. He's going to send the card to her as soon as possible. He hands the package to the courier and sighs. He felt better when he got rid of the card and possible death, although he is very sorry that he could not sell it. Suddenly he sneezes and, scratching the back of his head, assumes that he has a cold or someone remembers him. At this moment, Xin and Zhao Xiaoping are in the restaurant. The girl admits that she is in love with Lu Ming. At the same time, a girl with pink hair is standing on the balcony and breathing fresh air. A young man approaches her and asks if she is cold. He assumes that the girl is still upset because she couldn't get a card for him. He comforts her, saying that she did everything she could, so he doesn't understand why she blames herself. He says that there are many things that have their own destiny, but the girl says that Lu Ming is only the first star, so it's easy to find him. However, the young man refuses. The young man says that in fact, it's not just about Lu Ming, but about who is behind him. The girl asks who it could be, to which the young man replies that his sister Lu Yan is to blame for everything. The girl with pink hair repeated the name Lu Yan and said that this is the girl who is known as the genius swordsman of the First Academy, the demonic sword Lu Yan and her brother's classmate. The girl once again asked if Lu Ming was really the brother of that Lu Yan. The young man replied that a couple of one-star students defeated an experienced fighter and forced the girl to use a teleportation card. All this is for a reason. If his guess is absolutely correct, then Lu Yan should already have the Shadow Moon map. The girl silently watched her brother, listening attentively to him. Turning around, the young man told his sister not to worry, because it was no longer in her power, so, leaving, he asked her to rest. The girl asked if her brother was really going to give up this card. He replied that the legacy of Shadow Moon's predecessors is a dream come true for any sword cultivator. He then continued by saying that the 7 Shadow Moon cards, the 7 inheritance marks, the 7 bearers fighting for the supreme inheritance right. Although the competition promises to be fierce, but the winner remains to be seen. He confidently declares that one of the 7 cards should belong to him, so even if he has to kill, the card must be taken away. The young man's name was Gao Tianlan, and at the age of 18, he is already a 5-star cultivator. The First Academy is the best academy in the world, a centuries-old tradition of excellence with the world's strongest teaching staff, and a wide range of disciplines. This academy has the best students from all over the world. At this time of the year, the college conducts a special selection. The initiator of the event was Wu Hongfei, the first holder of the Shadow Moon card and a 5-star student in sword training. The purpose of this event was to find a map creator to help complete the inheritance of the Shadow Moon map. Since the legacy of the Dark Moon is based on maps and contains various prohibitions related to them, Wu Hongfei organized a set where high fame, good created maps and recommendations of a member of the First Academy are important. After observing all 3 points, the vote will be held for the most popular candidate. Lu Yan was walking along the corridor of the academy. Everyone around was fascinated by her beauty, so they did not look around and often bumped into each other. At this time, Wu Hongfei slammed his hands on the table and swore a lot of times. It was about someone who chose an unsuccessful candidate as a companion, so there is a risk of death. The director of the Association of Card Manufacturers was sitting next to the table, who said that although the result was somewhat unexpected, but this someone was recognized. The GLVA of the First Academy clutched his head. At that moment, Lu Yan entered the office. When asked by Wu Hongfei, she replied that there should have been a public election and her brother was chosen according to the rules that Wu Hongfei set, and now he declares that he will not accept Lu Ming. Wu Hongfei gets angry and asks the girl how she dares to talk to him like that. He says that if she hadn't been there with her sword, people would have known that it was her brother who created the Watermelon Ninja deck. The young man continues to say that he is a one-star creator of maps, so he does not understand who needs the founder of Watermelon Ninjas. He also asks if Lu Yan knows how much he spent on the Shadow Moon map. The girl said that Wu Hongfei organized the event. He set the conditions and signed a contract with the Card Manufacturers Association, so does he want to break the contract with them? The young man shouted that he wanted to break the contract, but Lu Yan immediately ordered him to close his mouth, and energy swirled around her body. Lu Yan's energy froze everything around. The head of the Association of Card Makers was very surprised by the strength of the girl. He was surprised that the surrounding space instantly changed under the influence of an energy surge. The man realized that at such a young age, the girl had reached such an incredibly high level of cultivation. Wu Hongfei didn't understand. If a girl knows her brother well, then why he should be his allies. The girl said that she knows her brother well and he needs to show the world, and the opportunity to become an ally of Wu Hongfei will help him learn a lot. Wu Hongfei didn't understand the reasons why he had to accept it. They seemed ridiculous to him. However, Lu Yan menacingly told the young man to stop behaving like that, otherwise he would pay for his actions. The head of the First Academy added that after all, this inheritance is intended for sword cultivators, which is very important for Wu. The young man realized that this problem could not be solved by talking. Wu Hongfei stood right in front of Lu Yan and declared that he would never agree to her empty-mouthed brother being his assistant. And as for the price, he is interested in what it is. Sensing something was amiss, the head of the First Academy said that a major battle was about to take place, so it was necessary to immediately call the security team to control the situation. Wu Hongfei hands Lu Yan a token and says that it is a one-time token that can be exchanged for a month of exclusive lessons from any of their teachers and even retired teachers. Wu Hongfei had to work hard to get it, but the young man wants Lu Yan to give this token to her brother as compensation. Already fleeing from the room, the head of the First Academy and the director of the Association of Map Makers stopped abruptly and turned around because they did not understand what was happening. Lu Yan, holding the token in her hands, called it a great thing and asked where the young man got it. He replied that it took a lot of money to buy it. The girl agreed to the terms and said that was it. She doesn't want to finish, but she will take the token for her brother's sake. The roaring Wu Hongfei was indignant because the girl said as if they were at a disadvantage. Turning around, she went to the exit. Wu Hongfei stared viciously after her. He believed that they were not finished yet, so when he accepted the inheritance, he would make her regret this situation. The girl stopped in front of the exit. She said she needed to say something before she left. Wu Hongfei asked not to blackmail him even more, but that's not what the girl reached into her pocket with the words that this morning she unexpectedly received a package with an unexpected gift. This gift was a map of the Shadow Moon. Everyone around is just petrified of this news. The girl said that from now on she will also be one of the leaders of the heritage. The girl also solemnly declares that she chooses her brother Lu Ming as her ally. From this statement, everyone around was in an extraordinary shock. The school where Lu Ming studied, although it is an old educational institution, but now it remains unknown due to decline. At this time, someone right in the schoolyard was telling a story related to Lu Ming, when tens of thousands of attack cards appeared from one of his light strokes, and then there were screams and screams with broken walls and rocks. Lu Ming, the hero of that day, buried the mine and dozens of enemies in it. Someone was surprised by brother Lu Ming's strength. At this time, in the office, someone holds a dossier on Lu Ming and says that he has advanced from the Watermelon Ninja to the hitherto unknown Bull card. Therefore, he absolutely proved his talent. The man will inform you that this is not surprising, because Lu Ming is Lu Yan's brother, so no matter how talented his sister is, Lu Ming is no less talented. Mizan says that this incident at the mine also shows the potential of this student. This morning, Ziyu and his team exchanged their awards for professional training. The man asked about Lu Ming. Mizan said that Lu Ming has been living out of school for the past few days and has not used his reward yet. The girl said, addressing the man, that he is the strongest card maker in the school and one of the best in the city, so she is sure that Lu Ming will choose his training. The man put his hands on the girl's shoulders and told her not to worry because he would take good care of Lu Ming, so he would arrange absolutely everything for him. This man was Zhang Feng, who specialized in creating maps. He was also the headmaster of the school. The man said with a smile that he would be responsible for Lu Ming. Suddenly, another man bursts into the office, who claims that Lu Ming's certificate appeared, but he did not choose anything, which surprised the director and Miss On. The man said after catching his breath that Lu Ming had sold the reward that the director had given. After thinking for a while, the man smiled and called Lu Ming a wild horse. After a while, Lu Ming stretched. Yes, the rest days did him good and his fatigue finally passed. His sister called the hero on the phone and said that she had a gift for him, so since she had already taken the card for herself, the young man would not refuse the gift. Thanks to the lightning-fast flight, the hero has taken a completely different path, and has a more suitable training style for creating maps, so he does not even need a teacher to guide him. Lu Ming believes that the teachers at the school have limited strength, so if you let them teach the hero, it will not help him in any way, so he firmly decided to study himself. Holding his card in the palm of his hand, Lu Ming says that the headmaster's award was sold for a lot of money, so he can use these funds for further education. The hero realizes that he continued to produce a bull card, although it can still steadily improve. However, it will take a very long time to reach the limit. The hero also thought about what would happen if 7 cards of a thunderous bull were merged together. Then what would happen? A card of 49 bulls or a card of a huge bull? The hero presented a huge bull with an axe to the advantage, but it is better to make this map faster than to sit and wait in attention. After inserting the card into the device, the young man thought that before creating the card, it must be sealed, and before sealing it, he must activate the original card at the moment of its activation before the bull appears. He wondered if it would be possible. The young man will start the device and the countdown to the activation of the cards has begun. At the end of the timer, the young man activates the thunderous bull cards. Feeling the unusual energy, Lu Ming realized that he had got a completely new card, which had a cross engraving on it. The hero looked carefully at the map and saw that the energy requirement is only 1,000 points. Lu Ming expected the new map to be more demanding. He thought that this was due to the new optimization of creating maps, and then the young man saw the pattern and was very surprised. There were no bulls drawn on the map. Lu Ming thought that this was some kind of mistake, so he thought that the map needed to be tested and viewed first, so it was necessary to find a safe place to experiment. After a while, Lu Ming came to the Association of Map Makers, where the test site is located, and asked to give him a place to test his new map. The girl at the reception desk asked about the number of stars that the card has. Lu Ming replied that he makes cards with 1 star. The girl, smiling, replied that the total cost on the part of the young man would be 1,000 yuan, and then asked him to use the band for a 1-star test room. Lu Ming replied that he would like to go to the test site for 2-star cards because he thought his new card would probably be too powerful for a 1-star room. The girl was surprised by Lu Ming's request. Suddenly, someone from the back addressed the hero that he did not need to be so arrogant, and he needed to check whether Lu Ming met the requirements. The man introduced himself as the head of the testing department, so he has every right to assess the determination of a recruit with 1 star to pass the test for access to a 2-star room. The man holds out his hand to the hero, in which there was a pink handkerchief. Lu Ming didn't understand what the man wanted from him. He rubbed his shoulder, turned around and went, calling Lu Ming a bug and saying that being grounded he would be able to achieve stability, so he should be honest with himself and test the map in the 1-star room. Lu Ming cringed and wondered why, at his age, a man thought he was a little bug. He, scratching his head and smiling, said that he thinks that this time the card he is testing is very powerful this time. The man, turning his head, said that the hero did not pass. Lu Ming decided to go to the 1-star room. The man, asking the girl at the reception desk for nail clippers, said that young people are currently not very capable, but very self-confident, and if someone has skills, then going out will only harm them. Entering the testing room, the hero saw a young man using the fireball technique, but the hero did not understand why there were so few people in a place of such a low level. Suddenly, a man with glasses approached him from behind and asked Lu Ming to get out of the way. Lu Ming asked the man why there were so few people in such a place. In response, the man said that Lu Ming is a beginner and does not know that many people bribe the manager, so they are allowed into the rooms of 2 or 3 stars. Lu Ming thought it was no wonder that the middle-aged man who was handing him a pink handkerchief was asking for a bribe. He decided that since he was in a 1-star room, Therefore, he needed to choose a large place. The hero approached an elderly man and asked him to step back a little, because he does not know how powerful his new card will be. The man replied that Lu Ming seemed to have a serious illness because there was enough space. He also said that he probably has to use 2 toilets. He said he wasn't going anywhere. Lu Ming, laughing, agreed, and in his thoughts hoped that there would be enough room for him. Finally, he uses the invocation. A man with glasses is surprised by what is happening. Blue energy begins to swirl around the hero. In an instant, nothing happens and Lu Ming is surprised by it. He thinks that the card is actually broken. But in a friend in his thoughts, someone turns to him, calling him boss and asking about the need to kill the man with glasses. Lu Ming turns around and sees behind him 3 huge muscular bulls with hammers, and their eyes glowed with a blood-red light. In an instant, 3 bulls screamed loudly, and everyone around ran to the side. No one understood where these monsters came from. In an instant, the bulls began to destroy the room, breaking the walls. Someone shouted that now the room would simply collapse. Outside, people did not understand what was happening and where such an earthquake came from. Lu Ming stood in complete shock from what was happening. The bulls were so big, but it all seemed familiar to him. Looking at the map, he realized that its image denotes the destruction that these monsters create. The map has acquired the value of 2 stars. Everyone was trying to find out where these monsters came from. Someone was unbearably scared because they were almost trampled to death. Suddenly, everyone looked at Lu Ming, and he in turn said that the association does not treat newcomers with 1 star as people. Everyone supported this outrageous behavior on the part of the organization. Lu Ming was delighted because no one found out that he had called these bulls, because it is very difficult to believe in such a thing. Suddenly, a male manager bursts into the room and asks about the culprit of what happened. He asked about what happened in this room and how it could be destroyed, because everyone here is 1 star. Someone said that huge minotaur monsters appeared suddenly and trashed the whole room. They almost killed everyone. The man said that the system will still show who destroyed the room, so if the culprit is recognized first, then the punishment will not be much less. Everyone around began to be indignant because they were almost killed, and the association still considers them criminals. They said they had 1 star, and no one even asked about the injuries. An elderly man with glasses raised his hand and said he knew the culprit. He pointed at Lu Ming and said that he had seen with his own eyes how he had summoned the minotaurs who had trashed the room. Lu Ming realized that he was seriously in trouble. He grinned and said that he really just wanted to test the map, and the result is ruined rooms that have long since become obsolete from not being serviced. The man with glasses said that nevertheless, the map that Lu Ming had just tested was clearly much higher than the 1 star level. Lu Ming pointed his finger at the manager and told everyone to reprimand him, because he asked for the 2-star test room when he arrived here, but he was not allowed. He also added that there are video cameras and listening devices throughout the building, so everyone can check the truthfulness of his words themselves. The male manager tried to say something, but Lu Ming interrupted him with his words that he despised him as a person. But also the man did not take care of everyone's safety. Folding his hands, the young man said that they, the creators of 1 star, fully deserve to go to rooms of a higher rank. Everyone around supported the speech of the main character and said that the association does not take 1 star creators seriously. The male manager stood in complete shock. He thought to himself that Lu Ming was a very interesting young man, but he shouldn't underestimate him. Suddenly, the male manager made a bow and said that this time there was an accident caused by their negligence and arrogance. So as compensation they can get 10 energy cards at the front desk. Everyone was delighted with this news. The hero turned around and went to the exit when he heard that he was allowed to visit the test rooms of 2 and 3 stars for free next time. After leaving the association building, Lu Ming thinks about how the bulls from his map can be so strong that even the map shows only destruction, although only 3 bulls should be depicted. Lu Ming decides to turn to the black cat. He apologizes for interrupting his lunch break, but wanted to ask if the change in the front side of the card is due to a crack from lightning. The black cat wiggled its ears and only rolled over from one side to the other. The hero wished the cat a speedy recovery and left. The cat grinned. After a while, the hero attaches the card to the rest of the unique cards and thinks that he needs to practice creating and improving cards more often for the sake of the future. Jumping up from his chair, Lu Ming told himself that there would be no more problems, because the recent incident had served as a good lesson that needed to be arranged. Suddenly, someone started knocking hard on the door of the store. The man behind the door was very aggressive. He asked Lu Ming to open the door for him and not pretend that he was not here. The young man, noting something in his notebook, thought that someone already wants to create problems for him in the middle of such a beautiful day. After opening the door and asking who came, a tall man who introduced himself as Jiang Yunchen stood right in front of him. He was flexing his fists. Lu Ming asked the man if he should know him. The man, raising his head high and showing the hero his card, asked if it was his. Lu Ming took the map to look at it. He also saw a lot of people who were just standing and looking at what was happening. Lu Ming pretended to be a fool and happily told the man that he wanted to buy a watermelon ninja card. To do this, you need to go to the store and then the hero will take out this card to him. The man, screaming, said that he was the injured parent. His child was a good student who loved to study and work. But because of Lu Ming's card, the boy could not even pass the entrance exams. People who were standing on the sidelines were discussing this situation. Someone said that this card is a bad thing, and someone suggested banning all games, cartoons, and comics altogether. The man kept shouting at Lu Ming for killing the future of all children with his unprofessional cards. The hero said that he would bring a cup of tea to the guest. By pressing the button at the cash desk, the young man asked the man how many cards his son uses per day. The man replied that about 40 pieces. Lu Ming suggested that if you use so many cards a day, you can die. Suddenly, a scarlet flame lit up around the man. He said that Lu Ming dared to use unconvincing arguments against him. The man was a cultivator. Enraged, he headed straight for the hero. The cultivator said that he just wanted to intimidate him, but he did not think that Lu Ming would want to be beaten. The young man was already getting ready to take out the bull card. Suddenly, right in front of the hero, the man was struck by yellow lightning and, losing consciousness, he fell right in front of the young man. A policeman was standing behind the attacker. The man apologized to Lu Ming for being late. The young man said that everything was fine, but asked for compensation for the damage caused to the store. The policeman agreed. After a while, at night, the man who had previously attacked the hero said that he had had enough and it was all very shameful, because there are so many ways to ruin his life. Another man, drawing a pattern on the map, turned to the recent victim and told him that Lu Ming was a very unusual young man. This man turned out to be the director of the school where Lu Ming studies. The next morning, Lu Ming opens the doors of the store with full combat readiness and shouts that he is ready for hard work. At one point, he notices someone at the entrance to the store. It was a girl. The girl was innocently sitting at the entrance to the store and chewing gum. Lu Ming coughed into his hand and asked if she knew that it was indecent to chew gum when someone nearby was chanting a battle slogan. Fixing his hair and beaming, Lu Ming asked her if she really came so early to buy a branded card of the store, Watermelon Ninja. The girl looked at the hero and then asked his name. Then, rummaging in her backpack, she handed him an envelope with a letter inside. The letter was addressed to Lu Ming. It said that yesterday's man who made a mess is too poor to pay off his debt, so he decided to let his daughter work in the store to pay off the debt. The young man, after reading the letter, asked the girl if she would really work here, to which she replied that her father told her to help Lu Ming and listen to him. After looking at the girl carefully, the hero thought that everything was not so simple and, probably, it was competitors who wanted to distract his mind with a beautiful girl. He doesn't know if it's good or bad. Suddenly the hero had a plan. He turned to the girl, calling her younger sister, and asked what her name was. She replied that her name was Jiang Yuebai. Lu Ming asked the girl if she shouldn't go to school. Jiang Yuebai replied that she was able to skip 1 year of school and transferred to high school. The young man replied that she should already choose a profession. He put his hand on Yuebai's shoulder and told her to become a card maker. The girl refused and said that the creators of the cards are poor, weak, and lonely. The hero, with tears in his eyes, recalls how passers-by said that the boy from the Lu family was getting older and older, but he could not find anyone for himself, and after becoming a map creator, he had achieved nothing for so many years. Lu Ming turned to the girl and said that her father ordered her to listen to the young man in everything, so he handed her a notebook with a pen and told her to draw, calling it a basic job in the store. The girl, taking a notebook and pen, said that she did not know how to create maps, to which the young man shrugged his shoulders and said that this is the basis of the basics. He then asked if the girl had ever considered becoming a sword cultivator. Jiang Yuebai folded her arms on her chest and replied loudly that she naturally thought about it. The young man guessed that this dream applies to all children, and then told the girl that first she should become a map maker. Jiang Yuebai replied that she did not quite understand the logic of the young man, but he replied that since the creator of the cards can fit any skills into the cards, so can the skills of a sword cultivator. Then he added that the girl will be able to create cards with different skills, so there is nothing that the creator of the cards could not cope with. The girl asked that she could become as strong as Lu Yan in the future, to which the young man said that she should understand that there is no such thing as being a genius in the world, He added that Lu Yan was also starting to slowly overcome obstacles on her way to become stronger. Lu Ming is her brother, so he knows exactly how much she gave to reach the level she is at now. He raised his hand up and said that if a girl is ready to learn, she will be able to withstand absolutely everything to invest in her sword skills, so she will even be able to surpass Lu Yan. The girl looked at Lu Ming and asked when she should start. She wants to learn how to encase sword skills in cards. He suggested starting right now, so he would immediately show her how to create a base map. He gave her his notes, in which there are many tips and thoughts, so the girl can read everything slowly and study. Leaving her behind the books, the young man finally said that she should not hesitate to ask him if she did not understand something. He will help her. After a while, when evening had already come, the young man was sitting on the porch of his store and thinking that the girl's father still had not appeared. He hopes that the man will still take her away. Suddenly, a girl with a glowing map came up to him. She asked what she should do when she had already put energy into the card. Lu Ming, looking at her, shed tears and thought about the difference between them, as well as why there are so many people more talented than him. The girl also asked when she would be able to learn sword skills. Suddenly, Lu Ming was called by someone. It turned out to be Zhang Xiaoping. He walked and waved cheerfully to the hero. Suddenly, the girl pointed her finger at Xiaoping and called him a fat man. The young man quickly turned around and ran away. Lu Ming caught Zhang Xiaoping and asked why he ran away, and then turned to the girl and asked her if they knew each other. Jiang Yuebai replied that Zhang Xiaoping was caught stealing exam papers from her father's office, so he was severely beaten. Zhang Xiaoping grabbed Lu Ming's leg in tears and said he didn't know everything. Director Jiang is very strict. Lu Ming was very surprised and, remembering Yuebai's father, thought that it was very strange that such a person was a director. Lu Ming asked the girl if Jian Yunqian was really her father, to which the girl said that he was her uncle, and Zhang Xiaoping said that her father's name was Giant Feng. The young man realized that all this was organized by the headmaster of the school. He used this actor to send his daughter to the hero. Lu Ming even thought it was because of his beauty. After combing his hair, Lu Ming thought that he should meet with the director. He told Zhang Xiaoping that his brother would help him today. Lu Ming asked Yuebai for her father's number. The girl held out her phone. The hero called the phone number and changed his voice. He asked if it was true that he was talking to Zhang Feng. Then Lu Ming said that he had Zhang Feng's daughter, so he needed to transfer 300,000 yuan or the young man would kill the girl. The man on the other end of the phone asked him to wait a minute so he could light a cigarette, and then asked if he was talking to Lu Ming right now. The young man laughed and said that he did not think that he would be exposed so quickly. He also asked when the father would pick up his daughter. The man asked if his daughter was naughty or scary. Then he asked if she was stupid. Lu Ming, putting his hand on his face, said that none of this. He himself did not understand what these questions were about then. Then he said that the man did not know the young man, but entrusted him with his daughter. On the other end of the phone, the man laughed. After lighting a cigarette, the man said that he knew a lot about Lu Ming. He said that some time ago the police uncovered an incident with watermelon ninjas, in which a man discovered a very fine work of the creator of the cards. Then he added that Lu Yan had a lunar map from the first college, and also that he received a call from the Association of Map Makers yesterday, and was told that a student had destroyed their one-star test site. It turned out that it was a student from a school where Jiang Feng is the director. The young man rolled his eyes. The man also added that he knows about the unpleasant moment of Lu Ming from his childhood. Falling to his knees, the young man said that, to be honest, the director makes it very difficult for him. He himself thought that the headmaster knew the parents of the former owner of this body. The man smiled and said that he had a little problem, so he would leave his daughter with Lu Ming. He also added that she is quite capable of surviving and taking care of herself. He asked what Lu Ming wanted as a reward. The young man replied that he would think about it and report it later, and he pressed the reset button of the call. Smiling, he thought that in the end he will be able to get some kind of reward. Zhang Xiaoping said that brother Lu didn't seem to be able to help him. Lu Ming replied that this was his strategy. The girl turned around and said that if everything was fine, then she went to study further. Lu Ming asked her to wait for him. After a while, Lu Ming told Yuebai that he had promised her father to look after her, but he was sure he couldn't do it just like that, so he asked her what she thought about the reward. Zhang Xiaoping approached Lu Ming and whispered in his ear that the girl was still too young for him. In response, Zhang Xiaoping received a notebook in the face. The girl replied that Lu Ming could choose money, but he can get many other things, which, unlike money, he will always have. The young man praised Yuebai, and then asked what would be useful to study. The girl pointed her finger at the notebook that stuck to Zhang Xiaoping's face and said that this would be a good option. Opening the notebook, the young man thought that not all cards will be as light as a fruit ninja, so with encryption technology, you cannot be afraid of easy piracy. He looked into the phone and said that the technology would be expensive, because the cheapest one equals a price tag of 60,000. He praised Yuobei and said that she was doing great. The young man called Yuobei's father. He was surprised that Lu Ming came up with the reward so quickly. The young man said he wanted to get encryption technology for cards. The man replied that the deal had taken place. He added that he has one condition. It is for Lu Ming to teach Yuobei the skill of creating maps. He considers the creators of maps to be very safe than representatives of other professions, and they are also able to protect themselves. He also added that he doesn't need Yuobei to follow in her mother's footsteps. Lu Ming said that he understood everything, and then thought that parental feelings were playing in the director. Lu Ming hung up and Zhang Xiaoping asked him if the director agreed to this. The young man replied that yes. He then asked Yuobei what instructions her father had given her. The girl replied that the only instruction her father gave her was that she listen carefully to Lu Ming. Then the girl said that he used to emphasize the special power of card makers. She recalled that Lu Ming said the same thing and that with the help of cards she could learn the skills of a sword cultivator, so she wants to try to create cards. Lu Ming, putting his hands on the girl's shoulders, said that she was saying everything right. He is sure that she will succeed, because from that moment on, Yuobei becomes his disciple. The girl, with a twinkle in her eyes, agreed and called Lu Ming a teacher. The young man smiled innocently. Yuobei once again called Lu Ming a teacher, and he just giggled sweetly. At this time, Zhang Xiaoping, who was watching everything, clapped his hands and looked sideways at the hero. Lu Ming asked why the young man still hadn't left and what in general he had forgotten here. Zhang Xiaoping said that he was not going to lie and his level of illusions was not the same as before. Lu Ming asked if Zhang Xiaoping was serious, to which the young man replied that he was always serious. The main task of his illusion is that the illusion can change color depending on the mood of the wearer. Lu Ming was very surprised, because this is what he was doing before his death. The hero grabbed Zhang Xiaoping by the shoulders and told him to show what he had done faster. The young man replied that he needed to tune in a little. Lu Ming told his friend to show and teach them, and Yuobei told him to memorize and write everything down. A cute dog appeared next to Lu Ming and Yuobei. Lu Ming, turning to his friend, asked that it wasn't just a dog. Zhang Xiaoping shouted and ordered the dog to go forward. Then he said that she was changing her eye color. Lu Ming fell to his knees out of hopelessness, and Zhang Xiaoping rejoiced from behind that the dog had slightly changed the color of his eyes. He said that when his mood changes, the level of excitement of the dog also changes. Lu Ming ordered his friend to turn off his illusion. Returning back, Zhao Xiaoping said that if he is happy, then there will be happy colors. If he is sad, then there will be cold colors. And if he is excited, then hot colors. He calls it great progress. Lu Ming sent Yuobei to train further, and he went to put Zhang Xiaoping out the door. The young man told Lu Ming not to worry, because later he would master the color-changing technique. After closing the door, Lu Ming thought that everything was really hopeless. Suddenly Yuobei called him, calling him a teacher. She handed him the phone and told him that her father had answered his message. The phone must have an encryption technique. The young man was delighted and said that Yuobei's father solves tender cases quite quickly. After unlocking the phone, he saw the D-grade encryption technique and told Yuobei that her father was even stingier than him. The girl asked Lu Ming to get used to it, because her father is like that. Then the young man told the girl to forget, because he had at least saved 60,000, and then he asked how much energy was in the girl's card. The girl took out a map and showed it to her teacher. It had the number 100 on it. Lu Ming said that he adores this feeling so much. The girl asked if this was not enough for a normal value. Lu Ming thought with tears in his eyes that originally the card of the previous owner contained only 15 energy. He thought about how he hated all people who were born geniuses. Meanwhile, Yuobei was looking at her master questioningly. Lu Ming replied that the value of the girl is a little low, so he will have to teach her engraving soon. The girl, folding her fists on her chest, replied that in the future she would try to study even more and harder. When she left, Lu Ming began to quickly study de-encryption, because encryption methods have their own characteristics and algorithms, and according to the programmer's plan, 3 thinking should be on 3 modules. The first module is considered to be an energy module with negative energy. The encryption module has a negative expensive algorithm, and the energy release module has the function of releasing negative encryption. Lu Ming thought that the core should be a thermal module, which is, to put it mildly, an encrypted wire. Sitting down at the table, he gets to work. Finally, the hero completed the work. He holds a card with black and white squares. The encryption layer covers the original core of the card. The young man thought that the front side of the map no longer seems so dark, because it's just a lock that needs to be opened and which has several levels. He thought it was all too easy, so it looks like the technique is quite ordinary. The fact is that the encrypted path is not as good as a limited map template. Then the hero opened his eyes and thought that the encryption only covers the top layer, and in fact there is too much unnecessary garbage. Still, the de-encryption card is a very powerful card. However, what happens if the hero combines the same cards as it was with the bulls? He decides to try. Yuebai carefully observed Lu Ming's actions. The hero made a combination of cards and realized that nothing had changed and everything was the same as before. He decides to combine the last card. Blue energy lit up around him. Finally, the hero managed to complete the task. The cipher of the card changed from black and white squares to yellow and black multi-level squares. Suddenly Yuebai came up to the young man and said that the teacher does not rest at such a late hour. Lu Ming said he had discovered some problems that needed further investigation. He tells her that she can start by learning how to make energy cards on her own. He's going to stay up all night tonight to do something important. The girl, putting her hands together, said that the teacher really works very hard. She says she will redouble her efforts. The next morning, Yuebai comes to Lu Ming's office, where bundles of paper are scattered everywhere. She carries a breakfast tray and tells the teacher to eat and rest. She stumbles upon one of the rolls of paper and, unfolding it, sees an image of a fish, arrows and 3 platform layers. She considered the drawing insignificant and crumpled the paper back. She came up with Lu Ming and asked if the young man had hurt her. Then, narrowing her eyes, she asks if the young man is okay. Lu Ming, in a terrible state, says that everything is fine and little Yuebai's teacher is fine. He also asks to call Zhang Xiaoping, because he has an idea for creating a new map. After a while, Zhang Xiaoping asks Lu Ming how much he will pay dividends when they get rich. The young man asks why there is such a rush. Then he asks to get straight to the point. At the expense of Zhang Xiaoping activates his illusion cube, and Lu Ming activates his encrypted card. Finally, they succeeded and a translucent map with 1 star, 2 arrows and a drawing of a monster fish appeared in Lu Ming's hands. Yuebai asks the teacher what kind of card he is holding. The boys say that this is the culmination of the wisdom of the girl's master, which is unprecedented and unprecedented, because with this card they will become rich. The stone-faced girl said that she wanted to ask what this card could be used for. The young man told little Yuebai to remember everything that is happening now. Then he asked how she was doing with her energy cards. The girl said that she tried, and then dumped a huge amount of energy cards out of her backpack. Lu Ming stood with a straight face, and Zhang Xiaoping was shocked by what he saw. Yuebai asked the teacher if she was learning too slowly. The young man said that it was not as good as he would like, but everything was very good. Zhang Xiaoping scratched his chin and said that Lu was even worse when he started. Lu Ming punched Zhang Xiaoping and said he had memory problems. After a while, Lu Ming took out his new card and said he would tell you what this card does. He pointed to the 2 arrows depicted on the map and said that one of them is filled with energy, which represents energy nutrition, and the other arrow is the activation of the card, which means that the card must be activated. Yuebai, chewing cookies, asked about nutrition and activation, and then gave an example of an ordinary dog that needs to be fed in order to be released. Lu Ming smiled and said that it didn't look like a dog. In Korea it looked like a fish. Zhang Xiaoping told the girl that she should know that this all looks like a type of fish farming. The young man holding the card said that Zhang Xiaoping was right. He called the map Kun, which includes the results of his work over the past few days. This card is his first combined card. A combination card is called a combination of cultivation and summoning. The more energy is poured in, the stronger the cultivation of the kunya, the more powerful the monster can be summoned. The card is disposable. That is, the monster can be summoned once, but it can also help to deliver an incredible blow at a dangerous moment. Everyone was delighted. Zhang Xiaoping asked when they would sell this card. The young man replied that there was no need to hurry, since the current encryption technology protects against small pirate workshops. A serious card maker can decipher this card in a couple of minutes. Lu Ming says he has to come up with something. Zhang Xiaoping suggests doing both with a fruit ninja. Yuebai says that her father mentioned in the Union of Map Makers that creators can get a copyright certificate, and then these people will not dare to create maps like yours. The Union of Card Makers, of course, would not recognize such a bad card as Fruit Ninja. But unlike Fruit Ninja, the current card is much cooler. The hero goes to the page of the Union of Map Creators, but there you need to log into your account. Yuebai says that her father said that before getting a certificate, you need to join the Union of Card Makers. Lu Ming says you need to register. In the line who invited the registrant, Lu Ming pointed out Zhang Feng, and Yuebai said it was good to have a good father. Suddenly, a notification came to Lu Ming's computer. Zhang Xiaoping immediately called the hero. It turned out that Lu Ming was denied registration. This shocked the hero very much. Calling director Zhang Feng, Lu Ming said that he had applied to join the Union of Map Makers, but he did not pass. The director said that this is due to the fact that joining the Union of Map Makers will be higher in level than Lu Ming, all because the hero created a fruit ninja and it is discussed every day in the Union. The director says that they all want to be popular and earn more money, so in any case, it seems that Fruit Ninja is not a very successful job. The Union of Card Makers believes that Lu Ming has spoiled the ethics of card makers with his Fruit Ninja, so he is refused. Zhang Xiaoping supported Lu Ming, and Yuebai said that all this has nothing to do with the teacher, and others only want to imitate the young man. Zhang Xiaoping said they couldn't do anything. If they can't join the union, they won't be able to apply for copyright, so it remains unknown how they can make a lot of money. Lu Ming became very serious and said that money can certainly be earned. But do these people really think that it is so easy to be an independent card maker? So he will still show real art in creating cards. Half a month later, Lu Ming says that they have made enough cards during this time and now they are all ready to earn serious money. Yuebai plaintively asks the teacher if it is possible to eat first. She was sitting in a pile of new cards and holding her stomach. The young man said that today was a great day, so he would cook her food himself. To celebrate the creation of the Kun card, then you need to eat fish. The girl was delighted to say that everything looks very appetizing. Zhang Xiaoping pulled Lu Ming's sleeve and asked how he knew that his friend liked fish. The hero said that he called a friend only to discuss the price of a new card. Lu Ming said that this cooked fish is for Yuebai, so Zhang Xiaoping won't get anything. The girl said that the teacher worked very hard, so he should also eat. Lu Ming was embarrassed, and then he saw how everyone started eating. He said he hadn't authorized it yet, and Zhang Xiaoping should first discuss the price of the new card with Lu Ming. After a while, Lu Ming stands in front of his store and says through a megaphone that today you can get an incredible card for just 2,000. Such an offer cannot be missed. A man from the crowd said that 2,000 was too much for a card. He asked what kind of card was so wonderful and for such a price. Lu Ming asks Secretary Yuebai to explain about the map. The girl announces that their newest card is a monster card that can be downloaded independently. Theoretically, the monster can be pumped up to the 6th star. Then she adds that the stronger the cultivator's abilities, the more powerful the monster being summoned. And killing a 4-star with 2 stars is no longer a dream. Questions were heard in the crowd whether it was possible to buy a card with a girl. Some people think that all this is just a money trap. Someone even guessed that it was the same company that produced the Fruit Ninja. Suddenly, an unknown man in glasses raised his hand from the crowd and said that he needed 10 of these unusual cards. He approached Lu Ming and asked if it was possible to pay with the card. Lu Ming handed over the terminal and said that everything was for their convenience. After seeing this man's act, people in the crowd said that all this does not look like cheating, so you need to try to buy this card. Walking around the corner, the man transformed into Zhang Xiaoping. The young man sent a message to Lu Ming that everything was successful. Looking at the monitor screen, Yuebai said that even after Zhang Xiaoping's performance, only 5 people bought cards. She wonders if all of this will work. Lu Ming, looking at the chat of the map creators, where everyone is delighted with this map, said that Yuebai does not understand a lot, because all this was just the first step to their excellent advertising. The next day, there was a huge crowd in front of Lu Ming's store. People asked the young man to sell them the Kunya card. Some even wanted to buy a few pieces. Lu Ming, holding out his hands with money, smiled and said that there were enough cards for everyone. It turns out that someone was watching all this from around the corner. The unknown wondered what Lu Ming had done this time. At this moment, in the office, 2 men were discussing Lu Ming's new map. One of the men considered the new card a common trick, like a fruit ninja. One of the men turned out to be director Zhang Fei. He asked the other man to look at the new card more closely. When the man with the mustache saw the cipher, he was surprised that the card had only 1 star, so he did not understand how Lu Ming could learn such a thing. The director, adjusting his glasses, thought that Lu Ming had talent at such a young age, so he was suitable to give him a little help. The second man was the president of the Union of Map Makers named Zhang Yang. The man asked Zhang Fei to bring Lu Ming to him because he wanted to talk to him. Lu Ming was surprised that the director wanted him to come to the Map Makers Union at night. Zhang Fei said he wasn't the only one who wanted to see him. Walking down the corridor, Lu Ming did not understand what all the mystery was about. Entering the office, he greeted the director. Banging his cane, Zhan Yong introduced himself as the president of the Qingming City Map Makers Union. Lu Ming shook hands with the president and said that he was glad to meet him. But the president was some unknown person, so he did not know him. The man said it was okay. He showed Lu Ming's new card and said he wanted to ask him about the recently released Kunya card. He asked if Lu Ming had created this map himself and if anyone had helped him create it. Lu Ming nodded his head. The man said he couldn't believe it. He also asked if Lu Ming was aware that combining cards is a skill that only card makers with 4 or more stars can learn. Lu Ming tensed, because 4 stars is a lot for such a card. And then he thought why there is a layer on top of the encryption layer. In fact, this is a real map layer. The surface of the map is not large enough to make a lot of engravings there, but to place this pile of engravings, another layer is needed. He realized that the more complex the map, the more layers there are in it, and the layer connecting the first layer with the last is the key to the composite map. And if it were not for the merging of the maps, he would not be able to see this detail. The young man thought that his progress depended on the black cat, so he could not be put anywhere and he could not let these 2 men suspect something. Sighing, the young man said that he knew he couldn't hide it. It turns out that his sister helped the young man and showed him some lamination techniques. The man smiled and thought that he had forgotten that Lu Ming was Lu Yan's brother. He apologized to the young man. The man noticed that the new hero card is a game card, like the last one, but there are significant differences between them. Fruit Ninja is not made by this lamination technology, but it inspires in its own way. He put his hand on the hero's shoulder and said that the map is a simple engraving, which is not too technical for advanced map makers, but the basic drawing is surprisingly close to perfection. Finally, he said that Lu Ming was great and wished him to continue in the same spirit. The director then asks Lu Ming how Yuebai is doing and when the young man will teach her the lamination technique. The young man said that he was going to teach her this today, and then noticed that 2 men were holding him by both shoulders and told them not to put pressure on him and whether he could go home. The president tells Zhang Fei that he has always known that he has always admired him, but asks him not to copy everything. Lu Ming says that he is leaving, and Zhang Fei asks not to forget to teach him UI. Lu Ming walked out and slammed the door. The president, scratching his chin, asked Zhang Fei about how he dares to send his daughter to someone else's house. Apparently his mind was confused. The director said that he did it for a reason. At this time, in some organization, a man informed his boss that Lu Ming had made another incredible card, to which the boss replied that everything should be calm. The man replied that he needed this incredible card, so he ordered his wards not to come to him without this card. Upon arriving home, Lu Ming met Yuebai. The girl asked what her father had asked. The young man replied that he had forgotten to ask about joining the union. He also said that those men had gone crazy. The girl said that she thinks that they will be able to sell the remaining 300 Kunya cards tomorrow, so she suggests creating some more cards. Lu Ming told the girl to rest for a couple more days. The hero ponders that they have sold almost 300 cards and, taking into account the costs of 100,000, about 500,000 income comes out. He also understands that there has never been so much work in his life. He also understands that if you do not issue copyrights, then sooner or later his card will simply be copied. Yuebai asks the teacher if he is really working overtime. Lu Ming says he will have to think about copyright. At that moment, a notification came to his computer that he had been accepted into the Union of Map Makers. Yuebai replied that the application was approved. The young man hovers the mouse over the reject button. Yuebai makes a questioning face. The businessman man holds the extracted card and said that he could not miss such a card. The essence of this card is to activate the card and release the card. He said that such a map can be made if you find a good map maker who owns this technique. He believes that the cost of breaking double encryption and hiring an advanced card maker is a bit expensive, but on the black market such a hacked card can be bought for 10,000. Meanwhile, the young man asked the personnel inspector of the Association of Map Makers Cheng Tihan which card could have such power as his. The girl replied that Mr. Lu Ming's skill and insight were truly exceptional. Then his card could not become an author's card because of the rules of the organization. She clarified that there are too many different maps for their creation and copyrights if they are not limited. Then there will be an infinite number of maps in stock. Then she added that the young man can make a request, and the girl will do everything possible to help him reach the top and succeed. The hero confidently said that he needed a copyright certificate because they all need to look at all this deeper and more promising because his card is an unusual card. The girl agreed. He demonstrated exemplary news. For example, that the creator of a one-star map almost turned the industry of map makers upside down. Or, for example, the Kun card is the first pet card in the whole world. This still only applies to card makers, but it's all reached the entire cultivator world. The young man said that he was not going to remain a one-star creator of maps, and whether the girl employee wanted to remain just a personnel inspector for the rest of her life. The young man continued that they, the creators of maps, have always been under the feet of other professions. Suddenly, the girl screamed that map makers are not the worst profession. Her eyes lit up with flames, and Lu Ming just looked at what was happening in shock. Then the girl became embarrassed and apologized for her behavior. Then someone from the surveillance camera told the girl to give Lu Ming a certificate, because it is possible to make exceptions to the rules. The man who spoke all this into the microphone also said that they, the creators of the maps, really need to prove their importance. This man turned out to be the head of the Association of Map Makers, and his name was Xiao Yang. The president of the association also asked Xiao Yang about Lu Ming, calling the young man a good fellow. After a while, Lu Ming tells Yuebai that he is back. The girl says that her teacher is very good, because he convinced everyone from the first time. The young man asks if the girl has the data about Kuna ready. The girl shows the tablet screen, where the new Lu Ming card is shown, and says that the data is already ready, and the card has been verified. Lu Ming says that it remains only to announce the card. Meanwhile, the boss of a certain corporation says that Lu Ming's capabilities are somewhat limited, and he does not pose a threat. Then he spreads his arms and says what it means to be effective. This means to create production quickly. He declares that he is going to return all the money he lost last time. The 4-star card maker Wu Bai asks the gentleman how much he will sell the giant Kun card for. The man says he's going to sell for 10,000. Then he adds that he has just seen the copyright of the Kunya map and its type in the association's file. He then asks if Mr. Kyan is okay. Mr. Kyan grabs his head and shouts that how such a card got copyrights. After a while, it turned out that with the discovery of copyright, the card fever Kunya broke out in full force. Everyone around asked what level each Kunya had and boasted about their achievements. Then there were even many imitative versions of this map. 20 days later, Yuebai goes to Lu Ming and carries a small box. She says he received a package. The young man asks to put the box down and come to him. He shows her some data, which states that the price of each design is 5,000, and after deducting the share of the association and taxes, the heroes will be able to get 1,000,000. The girl points her finger at the monitor, where the number of downloads of the Kunya map project is indicated, and says that in the future there will be a permanent source of funding for this project. Realizing all this, the young man and the girl began to rejoice very much. Lu Ming thinks that 10 days of work for 15 hours a day, and if he worked alone, then these figures would be much more. Lu Ming then asks Yuebai what she would like, and then says she will do anything for it. The girl says she wants to learn the skills of a sword cultivator. The young man asks how much energy she has now. Yuebai replies that her energy level reaches 150. The hero says that she is still too weak, so he will teach her some basic techniques, and thus Yuebai will be able to quickly improve his sword skills. The girl says that she will try even harder, and Lu Ming says that he will buy the girl a box of snacks. The girl wishes good luck to the teacher and leaves. Lu Ming takes out a map and gloats maliciously. He says it's time to deal with her. The hero addresses the black cat, calling him brother. He says that he is very sorry for the fact that last time he wanted to find him a companion. He says that he did not appreciate the cat's capabilities well. Then a huge muscular cat appears in front of the cat, and Lu Ming says that this time he chose him specifically for his brother. He added that he thinks it could definitely put the cat in a difficult position. At this time, the cats paw through the new companion far up. The next day, Yuebai asks Lu Ming what's wrong with his face. At this time, Lu Ming was putting energy cards into his backpack, and his face was all bruised. He smiles and says he accidentally bumped himself while rescuing a small wildcat last night. He thinks to himself that next time he will definitely finish off his comrade and become more powerful. The girl turns around abruptly and says that she is going to get medicine. Lu Ming shouts that he is fine and asks for help to prepare energy cards so that her master can become a 2-star today. Lu Ming thinks that his maximum energy is now 340 points, but to reach the 2nd star he needs even more, because this is not enough. 7 days later, Lu Ming excitedly shouts that he feels as if the energy space inside his body has suddenly become larger, and the energy is now only a small part relative to the previous amount. Yuobai says that the teacher's breakthrough was successful and praises him. The young man says that this is just a 2-star breakthrough. Lu Ming says it takes 10,000 energy to level up from 2 stars to 3 stars. With his cultivation of 100 energy per day at an average cost of 1,000 for each quick charge of energy, he calculated that if about 1,000 fast charges are needed, then 1 million will be needed. Lu Ming was simply shocked. Lu Ming says that this is the price for a quick rise to the 3rd star. However, there are a bunch of 3-star ordinary teachers. Yuobai says that if Lu Ming can't get up quickly, then it might be better to try to train slowly. Ma asks if it's really about money. Lu Ming says that card makers can't make much money because they are card makers. Cultivators participate in battles, assassinations, exploring ruins, and the like. They can thus become stronger and get rich. Yuobai calls Lu Ming. The young man turns around and sees Yuobai in pink armor, and in his hand was a sword. Lu Ming says which 2-star map maker would commit suicide. Lu Ming drinks tea and tells the girl to take her time, because they will still be able to earn on the kun, so isn't it great to train quickly for money? Yuobai asks if the teacher will give her if she advances. The young man says that she is still young, so she should not rush and there is no need to hurry. The girl says that she will try her best and try to keep up with the teacher. After a while, Lu Ming thinks that previously, due to energy restrictions, only the lowest level of cards was available. But now 2-star cards have become available to him. He looks at the destruction map and says that he really dislikes this map, but with its help he has gained precious experience. But too many bull maps have been made in the past 7 days. He also thinks that these cards are too expensive to sell, so he needs to find a way to make cards that can be used and sold, and not huge bulls that smash everything and everything. The hero looks at the cards and thinks that he can merge them together. He recalls that in order to break through to the 2nd star, the hero created more than 100 bull destroyer cards. He tells himself that the main thing is not to be afraid and it's worth trying. Finally, having put together, the hero holds a 3-star map, which depicts a white flag on the grave. Lu Ming says that now the front side of the card has returned to the style of modernism. He immediately decides to find the information in the computer. Lu Ming wonders if such a result will really be after activating the card and why there is a white flag on the front side. After scrolling through many sources on the internet, the hero puts his hand on his face and does not understand what all this means, because there is no information about this map at all, so it would be better to study it yourself. He notices 3 stars on the map and remembers that it takes 1,000 energy points to activate it. The hero believes that with such a huge energy consumption, the card is already at the peak of 3 stars, so if you use it, you can lose all the energy. He hopes that this card will meet his expectations. However, when he turns the card, he sees that the reverse side of the card is completely incomprehensible. Suddenly, someone interrupts him, greeting him and entering Lu Ming's store. An unknown visitor asked if the store was still open. A girl with green hair came into the store. Lu Ming remembered that this was the girl Zhang Xiaopeng was in love with. Lu Ming doesn't understand what she's left here. Lu Ming approaches the girl and tells her to choose whatever her heart desires. The girl, embarrassed, says that she would like to tell him something. Lu Ming considers children to be straightforward in this world. Suddenly, Yuobai appears behind Lu Ming. The girl asks what the older sister wants here. The girl says that she would like to buy 1 Kunya card. Lu Ming thinks he feels a certain coldness between the 2 girls. They stare at each other intently. Lu Ming translates the topic and says that he and the green-haired girl are classmates, so he will make a 10% discount for her. Lu Ming waves to the girl and tells her to come back. The girl thanks Lu Ming and says that she puts the money on the table, but in addition to the money, there was also a business card in her hand. Yuobai tells Lu Ming that she always feels something strange about the green-haired girl, but Lu Ming that the strangest thing right now is the engraving on the map of the peak of the 3rd star. Lu Ming says he is confident that his map making will improve significantly if he learns everything correctly. He thinks to himself that it's time to tighten up the basic knowledge. He turns to Yuobai and says that she needs books that are very important for beginners. He says he will order them for her now, and the girl should call her father to reimburse the expenses. The director says that Yuobai doesn't need these books right now, but Lu Ming says that Yuobai's cultivation speed is so great that she will need them soon, so Lu Ming has already ordered them. After a while, when the books have already arrived, Yuobai says that the teacher ordered the books for her, but for some reason he looks through them himself. The young man replies that since he is her teacher, he should consider the material himself. Suddenly, the hero notices a card that a green-haired girl recently left. Suddenly, Yuobai asks what the young man is looking at. He suddenly screamed and said that everything was fine and he was just watching a flyer that was given out so that they would order even more books. Then he says that the girl has not rested for a long time. He tells her to take the day off and go to her father. He also asks her not to forget to give her father a bill for reimbursement. After hanging a sign on the store about the closing of the shift, Lu Ming throws a flyer on the table and shouts that it is unclear where this sheet came from. He didn't understand where this thing came from in his store because he had paid off all his debts. He didn't understand who brought this card because the photos were deleted a long time ago. His eyes widened because in the first chapters, the hero found out that the former owner of the body had issued a loan and provided photos of his sister as collateral. Suddenly, he notices on the card that it is not the original. It looks like it was ripped off by someone who has already seen this photo. The hero decides to check and call the phone number. Someone answered and asked what they could do for the young man. Lu Ming asks about the services that can be offered to him. The girl says that they can provide all the services that can exist, and even if they can't, they provide them. Lu Ming says he wants to find a girl on a business card. The girl says that this model is their most important star. Lu Ming replies that the price is not a problem. The operator says that the young man can meet her in the fantasy world on an individual service. Lu Ming was asked to send an address so that the staff would come to his house. After a while, the hero hears a knock on the door and thought that the staff arrived very quickly. Opening the door, he saw a girl in a classic suit with a suitcase. She says she came from a 999 company. Lu Ming does not listen to her to the end, lies down on the floor and tells her to do her job faster. The girl says that when she puts an illusion on the young man, he will be able to see the girl. Then she supplements that will synchronize her movements. It will also help the hero to add a sense of realism so that the young man does not get lost in the illusion. Lu Ming said he didn't need it. The girl says that Mr. is really in a hurry, but they are professionals, so Lu Ming cannot worry about anything because nothing will happen to him. She thinks to herself that something is wrong with the hero. He presses the red button and after the countdown to the launch time, the hero sees someone's silhouette in pink light. Waking up, Lu Ming sees a very modest room, so he realizes that the illusion he is in has a low level. Suddenly, a girl whispers in his ear, calling him brother. Lu Ming realizes that the girl looks very much like him. All this is similar to the illusion that Zhang Xiaopeng showed. He begins to get angry because he sees an emotion with illusions. He punches the girl's illusion with his fist and curses Zhang Xiaopeng. The girl says what happened because less than a minute has passed. The young man replies that he transferred the money so that the girl would leave. He slams his hand on the table and nervously starts to dig into the phone. He calls Zhang Xiaopeng very stupid. He's not answering his calls yet. Yuebai says she heard her father talking about Zhang Xiaopeng not going to college lately. Lu Ming asks why the girl came back, and she replies that she decided to take some books to study. Suddenly, Yuebai asks about the card that depicts a girl. Then she says that the young man has a great hobby of photographing his sister, and the photo is great. Lu Ming grabs the girl by the hand and says that in fact the teacher does not do such things and this girl looks a little like his sister and it's all because of Zhang Xiaopeng. Suddenly, someone calls Lu Ming's phone and Yuebai says that the caller number is the phone number of the police department of their city. The policeman says that Lu Ming's friend, Zhang Xiaopeng, is currently in custody at the police station, so the young man is asked to bring his documents to the police station to cooperate with them. Yuebai asks the teacher about what happened to Zhang Xiaopeng. The young man replies that he is being held at the police station, so it is not surprising that they cannot contact him. Some time later, at 11 o'clock in the evening, Lu Ming asks Zhang Xiaopeng how he got to the police station. Zhang Xiaopeng says in tears that he really didn't have a girlfriend. He just started a small business of creating illusions, then he lost consciousness and woke up in a police station. Lu Ming asks a friend if he respects the young man at least a little and why he is lying. Zhang Xiaopeng says that Lu Ming does not look stupid, because he really made a deal with one company. This company gave Zhang Xiaopeng a photo and asked him to make an illusion, but they didn't pay him when he finished. After losing consciousness, the young man does not remember anything and does not know. Lu Ming thinks that Zhang Xiaopeng created an illusion and it looks like the truth, but he does not understand where the company got the photos that have been deleted for a long time. He asked about how a friend contacted the company. Zhang Xiaopeng began to hesitate and delay the answer. Then Lu Ming said that if the young man did not tell him, he would take him back to the police station. Zhang Xiaopeng immediately says that he will tell everything. He says that that day he accidentally picked up a small business card on the road. When he saw the girl, he thought that he had seen her somewhere before. In a fit of curiosity, he called back to the specified number because he is a good person who likes to study and explore everything. Then he says that he found out that their illusion level was very bad, so he used his own illusion. As a result, they decided that his ability to change colors is simply amazing. Lu Ming looks suspiciously and says that these people in the illusion still have a place to commit. They took Zhang Xiaopeng's illusion so that there would be no mistakes and vulnerabilities in their illusions. Yuebai asks what kind of services the company provides. Lu Ming pulls out the card in a panic and says that it doesn't matter anymore and this organization needs to be investigated. Lu Ming asks a friend about where he contacted them, and after explaining, the hero stays in the old town area of Qingming City. Walking along the map, the young man sees a huge building and security. He thinks that the business is very profitable because it is such a big building. The entrance to the estate is guarded, but he does not know their strength, so he needs to come up with an idea. He wants to figure out how to find out the strength of 2 guards and suddenly notices a ladder to the roof of a neighboring building. He takes 2 thundering bull cards and thinks that fuss, murder and all that is common here, so he asks not to blame him. Suddenly, a herd of huge thunderous bulls flew from the roof of a neighboring building. The guards were shocked and did not understand what it was. Everyone heard the noise and smoke behind the building. Everyone was wondering what had happened, and someone even said that the place where the explosion occurred was shark territory. The smoke finally dissipates and Lu Ming sees a protective technique, the Fortress of Love. 2 guards made a heart out of their bodies. One says that he and his brother are a good team. Lu Ming didn't understand what kind of people they were. One of the guards tells the second that he needs to report everything to the boss. The second one transmits on the radio that a surprise attack was organized, but everything was intercepted. Suddenly, a tall and sturdy man appears from behind 2 guards and says that they were only able to protect the gate. This man was Sha Gui, the head of the sharks. He shouts at the young men and says that they are really only guarding the gate, but all the other walls are destroyed. He threatens that the 2 of them will guard only this gate for the rest of their lives. Lu Ming has unlocked a 2-star ability, Enhanced Perception, thanks to which it is possible to distinguish the enemy's cultivation levels. The young man, after analyzing, was convinced that there were 12 people without stars, 7 with 1 star, 8 with 2 stars and 1 with 3 stars. He can't believe there's a man with 3 stars here. This can be a problem, because 1 warrior was enough for them all to almost die in the mine. He thinks that if you call the police, even law enforcement officers will not dare to come here, because the enemy is strong. But the hero decides to become more serious and cultivate. He decides to find out more first. This time he wants to find out where the photos came from, but he doesn't think it's worth making a big fuss. After a while, he found out information about Faneria. The man was a member of the Banana Loan Cucumber Durian Loan Company. He was suspected of many crimes. The young man remembered him. This man was next to the leader of the sharks. He understands that if he left photos as collateral, then it is now clear where the sharks got his sister's photos from, and now it is clear where the company got them from. Suddenly, someone called Lu Ming's phone. The man introduced himself as a former employee of Cucumber Durian. He says that Lu Ming has taken a fancy to a rich young man who wants to pay a lot of money. If Lu Ming befriends him, he will be able to build a large fortune. The man says that Lu Ming just needs to come and answer the question. Lu Ming resets the phone. Lu Ming didn't understand how he dared to call him. He wonders if the man is really looking for death. Lu Ming looks at the calendar on his phone and thinks that he needs to solve this and therefore needs to stall for time. However, a generation of people have such disgusting tastes. Faneria tells the head of the sharks that Lu Ming has hung up. Then a message arrives on the phone where Lu Ming says he can't talk right now. He has classes these days, so he can come on Saturday. Faneria tells Brother Wang that everything is ready and Lu Ming will be here on Saturday. The head of the sharks smokes a cigarette and smiles. Then the head of the sharks tells Mr. Wang not to worry, because they do everything they promise. Faneria offers Mr. Wang a cup of tea. Mr. Wang is told that he has great taste in girls, and seeing him stroking a photo of Lu Ming's sister, they say that he chose a very attractive girl. Mr. Wang says that these 2 are exaggerating too much, but she just has a very sweet smile, like beautiful spring flowers. 5 days later, the hero put on his combat suit and ordered Yuebai to keep an eye on the store while he went about his business. The girl asks when the teacher will be back. The young man replies that very soon and she should not worry. After a while, Lu Ming, watching the building, thinks that it is a good distance, a good height and a good angle. There are also 4 guards there, and the walls are twice as thick as before. Lu Ming believes that undoubtedly everyone is more vigilant now than before. However, it doesn't matter. He opens a bag of cards and takes out a card with 2 stars, which depicts a bull with a rocket backpack. The young man says that it's time to put an end to everything. In the past, Yuebai asked about the map and how it differs from the previous one. The young man says that this is his latest development and updated bull map. The girl assumes that this is a mixture of a flight card and a delay card. He understands that the girl immediately saw these two cards. The flight and delay cards are one of the most common 2-star cards, and they match their names. Yuobai says it takes a lot of energy to use this improved bull herd card. The young man says that he cannot release the whole herd because of the amount of energy. The girl assumes that the card is useless, but Lu Ming explains that his plan is not to have all the bulls fly. He says his idea is to let the cards fly to the target. Suddenly, everyone in the mansion was alarmed. The man asked the boss of the sharks about what was going on and what kind of earthquake. The shark boss shouts for the man to go and quickly inform the young gentleman that they are being attacked. There was a canvas of maps above the building. Mr. Wang asks if a nice girl is coming soon, and then says that there are no accidents and there is such a mess in this old city. Faneria says that Mr. Wang should not worry, because the shark boss will come out and escort the man himself this time, and they will make sure that everything is fine. He also asks not to worry, because the girl will definitely agree. Complacently, Faneria says that he has a very good eye for people, because when he was a young man, he was also handsome. Suddenly another man bursts into the room and tells Faneria that a lot of bulls are above them now, and the boss is on the street. The man hits the man who entered on the head and shouts that he does not see that Faneria is now with an important guest. He doesn't believe the news, but the man says it's true. Mr. Wang smiles and tells Faneria that his younger brother is very brave, since he can lie so openly. Then he hears a noise above him and the ceiling cracking. At this time, a huge pile of bulls begin to fall from above like rain. People are shouting and saying that they were really attacked by bulls. The head of the sharks, seeing the explosion, shouts that young Mr. Wang is in the building now. Everything around and everywhere was exploding. No one understood where all this herd came from. At this time, Lu Ming thinks that the third layer of engraving first sets the map to the desired position. Looking at the explosions, Lu Ming then thinks that the second layer of engraving releases the map, and the number of bulls falling from it. The power should be the peak of the third star. He understands that the gang of sharks who used his sister's photos have now paid for it, and from this day on they will not exist. So they will not continue to distribute the photos. Adjusting his cap, he says that this is the end. Turning around and already walking home, he notices someone watching him, and, turning around, sees a huge eye looking at him and hovering in the sky.